The young man with clear blue eyes watched the young lady closely and was sure that he had seen her before. The blonde girl looked at him in confusion, not understanding how she could have ended up in this situation. He also wonders if she really cares about the children from her side families, but she believes that there is no need to worry about these children and that later they are the ones who determine her punishment. In the house of the Marquis of Seriton, the maids were discussing how they had hardly seen either the Marquis or the Marchioness lately, and there were rumors of their disappearance. Hearing this, the fair-haired maid quickly grabbed the stone lying on the curtain, hid it under her shirt, and continued to watch. At this time, the girl with the broom came to the conclusion that the Marquis and Marchioness had not disappeared for no reason, but had perhaps died. The fair-haired maid predicted the family's downfall. She spoke with confidence, knowing that the world around her existed within a novel. As often happens in such stories, the main character died as a result of an absurd and accidental fall. On the eve of her immersion into eternal sleep, the girl read the fantasy novel The Unforgivable Sin and, upon waking up, found herself inside the book's plot. The lady with the sunny hair first wanted to explain what exactly this novel was about and remembered Joshua Ron Keratin. Joshua is the novel's protagonist and the heir to a marquis whose family has a long history. However, his life since childhood has been a series of misfortunes. Eventually, Rowan found the man who had brought his life to hell and took revenge on him, which became the basis of the novel's plot. The problem is that the book ended mid-story, and all the events, including the beginning of Joshua's misfortunes, are happening right now. The employees complained about Keratin, who could not provide them with wages and was responsible for the disappearance of the Marquise. Joshua and his twin sister were sent to Selmia, but the children were ignored and no longer provided with food. Upon learning of this, the main character became furious, unable to understand how children could be starved, and quickly prepared food using the Korean method she could not forget. The lady brought the prepared food to the children's doors, knocked, and hid, waiting for them to take the tray, after which she left with pleasure. The maid helped the twins for several days, but the knowledge that all the helpers died prematurely curbed her care. The girl opened the suitcase with the stolen jewelry and thought that one death at a young age was enough, and nothing more could be changed. The main character realized that she had successfully avoided getting entangled in the romance, and now all she had to do was take responsibility for her future and set off on a new journey with the jewels. Looking at the stones, the girl understood that she was doing wrong, but she considered it as compensation for unpaid wages. The time came, and she opened the door to the servants' room, announcing that everyone should leave. When all the servants had gathered in the main room, the butler demanded silence, as the announcement was being made in the name of the Duke. The butler reported that the disappearance of the head of the family, Marquis Keratin, made it difficult for the family to fulfill their duties. All privileges and duties of the lord are suspended, and the transfer of the title is postponed. Since the heir is still young, the Seriton estate will be under the control of the Duke's royal family until he reaches the appropriate age. The butler announced that, as a result, all servants must be dismissed. The servants were very surprised, because they had not yet received their wages for the previous months. The main character, although she expected it, realized that she was being kicked out without payment, but was glad that she had packed the jewelry in advance, despite her pangs of conscience. While in the maid's room, the girl suggested that they go to bed, but the servants decided to ignore her, not understanding why she was so calm. The lady thought that very soon her new life would begin, and she would be able to escape from the plot of the novel, which she had been waiting for a very long time. The next day, lying in bed, the girl realized that she had slept well and felt refreshed. However, she soon noticed that there was no one in the maid's room. Only the remaining garbage indicated the recent presence of servants. The lady decided that it was time to slowly get her act together and not make the same mistakes again, starting life with a pure heart. The main character looked at her suitcase and immediately noticed that the jewelry she had carefully kept was gone. Not finding them in the room, the girl immediately thought that they might have been stolen and now they were with someone else. The saddened lady understood that there was no time to waste, because there was nothing in the other rooms either, and she needed to act quickly. The fair-haired girl decided to search the Marquis's room, hoping that there might be something valuable there. However, the room turned out to be empty, because the owner of this house led a dissolute life and squandered money that she did not have. The upset protagonist realized that she would have to start saving and acting more carefully. Suddenly, the lady heard that stealing was a habit for her. Hearing this, she was very surprised. She looked back and saw the young gentleman, but quickly realized that he did not mean what she thought. Joshua stated that he did not need her excuses. He was interested in whether she was planning to run away like the other servants. Hearing this, the girl thought, not understanding what to do now, apologized and tried to leave. Suddenly, the young gentleman grabbed her by the hem of her dress and told her to wait because he had something to tell her. The maid tried to persuade him to let her go so she could speak calmly, but Joshua did not want to let her go and asked if she was going to run away. The main character assured him that she would not leave, and then Joshua invited the lady to sit down. The girl objected that she could not, but the young gentleman exclaimed, demanding that she sit down anyway. He asked her if she thought he was funny, and then wondered why she hadn't left yet, since the other servants had already taken everything that could be sold. Joshua wondered if she stayed to get something else, or if her motivation was different. The young master said he wanted to thank her for secretly feeding the servants. The protagonist was surprised to realize he had noticed her actions. The lady said that it was her duty and she was just doing what she had to do, because a servant should take care of the servant. Joshua asked if it was her job to bring food secretly every night. The main character explained that she did it out of a desire to help and serve correctly, and apologized if it bothered him in any way. The lady admitted that it had been an honor to work for the Marquis of Seraton's family, but at the same time she knew it was time to leave. Hearing this, Joshua cried out and asked her to wait because he had not yet said everything he wanted, reminding her that it was important to talk to her. The young master asked if she thought that if commoners ignored the aristocrats, they would get away with it. But suddenly he calmed down and explained that he had not meant to say exactly that, but had simply noted that the lady did not bully the servants like the others. He added that she was the only one who treated them with respect. The main character noticed the despair in his eyes and realized how much he needed support. The lady decided to listen to him one last time and leave, reassuring the young gentleman that everything was fine. Realizing that he was talking about something important, the girl listened attentively, and the worried Joshua continued. He said that soon the knights of the duchy could come and take them away, and it would be impossible to resist. The people of the duchy will dispose of them at their own will, and no one will be able to protect them. Joshua emphasized that he understood that no one would take care of them, so they needed her help. The main character was surprised, not understanding why he was still so worried about them. The young gentleman looked pleadingly at the lady and asked if she would become their guardian. Hearing this, Evgenia was very surprised and asked again, thinking that she might have heard incorrectly. She asked him if her hearing was correct, and the young gentleman confirmed that everything was heard correctly. Joshua explained again that he wanted her to be their guardian, and repeated his request that she understand the gravity of the situation. Evgenia felt the situation was unbelievable and turned to the boy, explaining that for a simple servant like her, fulfilling such a request would be extremely difficult. Joshua said that she was planning to leave anyway, and offered to take him and Sally with her right away so as not to waste time. The main character wondered whether it was worth discussing first and then acting, realizing how desperately the boy was asking for help. But instead of making excuses, Eugenia honestly admitted to Joshua that in order to take care of them and hide from the Duke's family, she would need a certain amount of money. The girl explained that she had not received her salary for several months, and if one of them got sick or injured, she would not be able to take them to the hospital or provide them with medicine. Joshua said that he understood her words, and at that moment, Evgenia thought about how difficult it was to make the right decision. She realized that she couldn't act simply out of sympathy, because responsibility for the children should lie not only with her, but with Evgenia Eileen herself. Eileen Blair had a rich biography, but she remained the youngest daughter of a baron's family that had fallen apart. Because of this, Eileen was unable to find a suitable match for herself in high society. As an adult, she could only work as a home teacher, completely dependent on the circumstances of the past. Eileen took a position with the Marquis of Seraton's family of high repute, tutoring the twin heirs. She managed to establish contact with the children, but 6 months ago she was fired due to the deteriorating financial situation of the Marquis' family. After this, the teacher got a job as a nurse for an elderly lady in a remote province, continuing to care for others. Hearing the news about the Marquis' family, Eileen became worried and returned to meet the children on the appointed day. The main character realized that she could not become the children's guardian because her actions would differ from the story, and the plot must remain true. The maid told the young master that she was ready to leave, but suddenly heard a strange sound. She thought it was time to act, but she didn't understand why Joshua was still there. Eileen was supposed to appear before the bell rang, and Evgenia took the boy by the hand, suggesting that they hurry. At first, the boy did not understand and resisted, but the girl convinced him that there was no time to explain. Joshua wondered why she was doing this, and at that moment, Eugenia felt the ringing of the bell as a symbol of fate. Eugenia asked if Joshua had remained with the young lady in a secret place all this time, and the boy was surprised how she knew this. The lady explained that she had seen them walking when she brought food, and offered to tell him where the secret place was, instead of puzzled looks. Joshua promised he would tell her, but asked if she would become their guardian after that. The main character confirmed that she would and suggested that they go quickly, which made the boy very happy. He noted that she had promised, and if he showed the secret place, she would take him with Selly. Evgenia understood that time was short and assured that she would fulfill her promise, but she also thought that when Eileen came, the children would go with her. Joshua said that this was great because he trusted her and would take her to the secret place, and the girl felt relieved. Evgenia asked how far it was to go, and the boy said that it was not far at all. You need to go straight ahead and then turn the corner. Arriving at the wall, Joshua explained that they had reached the place, and the girl looked around carefully. She thought that she hadn't imagined that the secret place was arranged exactly like this. The boy knocked a few times and the door opened, inviting them inside. He explained that this was their secret place where he and Selly hid, and Eugenia appreciated this in her thoughts. The room was hidden, toys on the bedspread, cookie crumbs. Everything spoke of a child's life here. Joshua happily asked her if she liked the place, proud of the work she had done. The main character thought that she was not impressed, because the adults made mistakes, and it was the children who suffered. Suddenly, she heard the last ringing of the bell, and was glad that Eileen would come soon. The boy addressed her by name, but she remained silent, and he did not understand what was going on. Evgenia replied that everything was fine, but Joshua noted the strangeness of her behavior and doubted whether she was listening to him. The lady explained that she had listened, but the boy insisted that she had not heard him, adding that when someone speaks, it is important to listen. He asked a question about the oddities of adults, and Evgenia apologized, admitting her mistake. Suddenly, she saw Celia on the bed and thought she wanted to ask a question, but she was glad she didn't have to look for her. Joshua said that his sister was sick and suggested not to wake her. The boy explained that before his father disappeared, he had made a promise to protect Selly. He added that, even without a father, he is obliged to keep his word, because he is her older brother. Evgenia thought that even if the situation was difficult, the children had been through too many trials. Eugenia wondered what would have happened if she had found herself in the body of an aristocrat instead of a servant, and wondered if she would have been able to help the young master then. Suddenly, the girl felt the young gentleman grab her dress again. But then she turned her attention to the boy, and he began to explain the situation to her. He admitted he was afraid the lady might run away. Evgenia was surprised, not expecting one movement to provoke such a reaction, and realized she needed to be careful and not disturb him needlessly. She sat down next to the boy, insisting she had no intention of running away. But Joshua doubted her, saying she was lying. The lady explained she wasn't lying, but simply stepped back to avoid disturbing the young lady. Outside, Evgenia told the young gentleman she'd sit near the mansion's main door. Hearing this, the boy decided to sit next to her, but she warned him it was cold there and asked if he was sure. Joshua assured her he could handle the cold around her, and Evgenia smiled. The boy didn't understand her laughter, so she explained that he was very cute. Upon hearing this, Joshua lost his temper and indignantly declared that he wasn't cute and was no longer at the age to be cute. The girl agreed, and he added that he had grown up. Evgenia thought that when Eileen came, she wouldn't see Joshua's face like that again. She watched the boy and thought he was still cute, even when he was angry. The main character realized that if she became part of the story, something bad could happen, but she realized that she only needed to provide the necessary help and leave. Evgenia decided that this was how it should be and wondered why Eileen hadn't arrived yet. She realized she'd have to wait a little while. After some time, the girl became convinced that waiting was still necessary. It was already completely dark outside, but she didn't understand why the teacher hadn't come yet. Late that night, Evgenia didn't know what to do and thought that perhaps she just needed to wait, although she assumed that Eileen might never show up. The girl thought that she did not want to take responsibility for the children because she did not want to put herself in danger again, and she thought about abandoning them and running away. She understood that if she left, these children could die. The lady turned to Joshua, saying that she had something important to tell him. Evgenia admitted to the boy that she didn't have enough money and asked if he happened to have any extra. Joshua asked if she needed money, and as he walked towards his sister's bed, he said that he himself did not want to ask for money just like that. The boy apologized to his sister and asked her to move over for a second. He took out precious stones from under the bed and offered Evgenia to take them all. The girl was surprised and asked where he got them. Joshua explained that he had secretly hidden his mother's largest stones so the servants wouldn't find out about them. Evgenia realized that she could not accept them, because this was all that the twins had left from their parents. The decorations featured a heraldic lily, the symbol of their family. She knew that if they were sold, they would be considered stolen property, which would cause even more anger. All that remained was a ring with a fake stone, which, as she realized, when the Marquis bought it, turned out to be a deception of the jeweler. The lady couldn't tell Joshua about this and didn't know what to do. The boy said he was not asking to take responsibility for his whole life. He only offers to take them to the Empire of Ace, to the house of Duke Gerace, and promised that then all the jewels will become hers. Joshua explained that the previous duchess was their grandmother's sister, and that Eugenie was only supposed to take them to the duke's house. The girl returned the jewelry to the boy, saying that one ring would be enough for her. She thought that if there was at least one ring left, Joshua would be at peace. Eugenia promised the young gentleman to deliver them to the house of Duke Gerace. She asked him if he believed her, and Joshua happily agreed that he did. Suddenly, Joshua offered to draw up a contract that needed to be signed. The lady was doubtful, wondering if she was being deceived, and asked if it was really necessary. As she read the contract, she cried out when she noticed the $1,000,000 gold fine and wondered if that was too much for one fake ring. The guy explained that the contract was needed just in case she suddenly decided to leave. Evgenia said that this is not true and is ready to sign, but she also has conditions. Joshua became interested and she explained that now she needed to be called with her sister. The girl explained that for safety, they needed to disguise themselves as brother and sister with a large age difference and asked if he understood her. The young gentleman said that he did not understand why this was necessary. Evgenia declared she would have no other choice. Joshua cried out but agreed that he understood her conditions. Joshua now called the lady's sister, and she told him to get ready to leave. After some time, the main character reported that they had arrived at a village near the border. She thought that she had sold everything that was in the mansion, because she needed to find a village to cross the border of the empire, and she had to urgently look for a cart. Sully joked that this was the hotel where they would be staying, but her brother warned her that it was dangerous and suggested that she not go alone. Evgenia remembered that the novel said that the assassin, having recognized the twins, attacked them and killed Eileen. She understood that the danger was still real, and they needed to be extremely careful. She suggested including a clause in the agreement that would require the twins to pretend that she's their older sister. That's why they decided to call them by their first name and nickname, to fit the role. A young woman dyed the twins' hair black. Seeing their reflection, the young man curiously asks if the dye will wash out. Evgenia assures them that the dye can be washed off with water later, and if that doesn't work, the hair will still grow back, and advises them not to worry. Selly says she likes the new shade. Joshua notices her heading somewhere and asks why. She explains she's going to earn money. The young gentleman is surprised by what he hears, and asks if she sold the ring, since the amount she spent seems too large. However, the girl doesn't know what to say, since the truth can't be told. Evgenia explains that the more money they have, the better. She tells the boy not to go outside with his sister. Joshua agrees, assuring her that he understands perfectly well what she's talking about. Suddenly, Selly runs up to Evgenia and asks if she can go with her, because she feels cramped. Everyone continues to demand that she sit quietly. The main character doesn't understand when she asked for this and asks the girl why she needs it. The girl explained that she wasn't even allowed to open the window. Hearing this, the lady thought that they had to wear a cloak all the time, and it must be tiring. Evgenia says that today she will work hard and buy the girl her favorite candy, but Selly will have to wait a little longer. The girl agrees, happy that they will be lemon candies, and promises to quietly wait for her sister's return. The main character approached Selmia and noted that she was not only a cutie, but also a smart girl, so she would try and return to them soon. After leaving the room, the lady thought about what had been said, but felt tired and weak. The young lady understands that a pass is required for passage, but due to the complex relations with the duchy and the empire, it will be difficult to obtain. Evgenia reflects that, if she takes into account the costs of bribes, medicine in case of illness of the children, food and shelter, she will not have enough money. Seeing the gentleman, the girl screamed and asked if this was the labor exchange, since she wanted to get a job. The man pointed to the wall where job postings were posted. Coming closer, the girl began to read them carefully, but did not find a suitable job for herself. Evgenia noted that it was quiet here, which frightened her for a moment. The silence made her realize she needed to find a job quickly, but nowhere paid more than 5 gold pieces. Suddenly, the lady saw an advertisement for a maid to accompany her to the Ace Empire. The reward was high considering the distance, and there was even room for negotiation. The main character thought that this was exactly what she needed, approached the man and told him about her desire to get a job. The gentleman asked her in surprise if she was really ready. The girl assured him that she would definitely do it. The man noted that there hadn't been any takers for a month and was considering taking down the ad. He told her to hurry, to which she thanked him. Arriving at her destination, Evgenia looked around the house and thought that it was a little lacking in coziness, as it resembled a hotel. The lady remembered the gentleman's words that the advertisement had been up for a month, but no one had come. He asked about it but received no answer. Evgenia realized there was no other way out and decided to go in. Upon entering, she greeted him and said that she had come to meet Mr. Elveri. The woman asked if she had come in response to the ad, offered to follow her, and asked if the lady had heard about the gentleman, explaining that if she was hired, she would have to congratulate the girl. The woman warned that the gentleman could be loud and advised covering her ears. The lady, knocking on the door, loudly called the gentleman, asking him to open the door, assuring him that she knew he was sleeping. Suddenly, a young man with green hair and glasses on his nose opens the door, asking what's the matter. The guy approaches Evgenia, asks if she saw the ad, introduces himself as Elveri, and expresses his joy at meeting her. Upon seeing him, the girl realized he was the employer. She gave her name, Evgenia, and was also pleasantly surprised. She noted that he looked a little younger than she expected. The man invited the lady to go inside the room first, explaining that he needed to conduct an interview first. As soon as she crossed the threshold, she immediately noticed that the room was no different from a pigsty. Evgenia apologized and admitted that the space looked dirty because she didn't know where to sit. Elveri assured her that she could get a job anywhere and suggested that the interview begin without unnecessary formalities. The man asked if the lady knew exactly what position she had come here to apply for. The girl replied that she understood because he needed a maid to accompany him to Ace's empire. The gentleman nodded, saying that she understood everything correctly, but then noted one important nuance. Despite the proximity of the country, he would have to cross the border, and he wanted to make sure that this would suit the lady. Evgenia assured him that this was no problem for her, and the man noted her peculiarity, since most people avoid assignments that involve long journeys. The main character explained that she had originally planned to work for Ace's empire, so this was a natural direction for her. The green-haired man asked Miss Evgenia if she'd ever been there. She replied that she hadn't yet, but if she was accepted, it would be her first trip. Elveri asked if she had any experience as a servant. The girl explained that she had already served a master and was second to none in that regard. At that moment, she looked at him and thought that she could handle any task, demonstrating the skills of a modern Korean. Elveri told her he was hiring her, and the girl felt joy. She would soon be on her way, and there were no other candidates, so the man found himself in a difficult situation. Evgenia asked him for a small concession and asked if it would be possible to increase the number of companions. The man asked how many exactly. The main character explained that there would be 2 of them, since she had a younger brother and sister, and they had no other guardian. The girl added that the children were still small and required special attention, but she would make sure that they did not disturb him in any way. Upon hearing this, the green-haired man said it wasn't his responsibility. The girl assumed he was the employer, but the man revealed an important detail. He explained that he would now call the real employer, and the lady could meet with him to discuss all matters. Hearing this, the girl realized he was not the employer. The main character asked if there was anything she should take into account in advance. Elvery advised her not to inquire about her employer's personality and not to pester him when he was alone, asking if these 2 rules were sufficient. The girl agreed. However, the young lady thought this was elementary advice, because the more she thought about it, the stranger everything seemed. She couldn't understand why, after all this time, no suitable candidate had been found. Standing at the door of the employer's room, the main character thought that the interview had gone easily. She had not been asked in detail, but she was still worried whether everything would be okay. The guy with green hair told the gentleman that the candidate had arrived, opened the door, and pushed the girl inside. The lady noticed that the man didn't even ask permission and wondered if it was okay to enter like that. Upon entering, she apologized and noted that the room was dark and she could hardly see anything. The curtains were completely drawn, and she thought that the employer was perhaps a man accustomed to the dark. Suddenly, she heard a voice announce a chair in front of her and suggest she sit down. She assumed it was her employer and did as he said. Sitting down on a chair, Evgenia apologized for the late introduction, gave her name, and explained that she had come to work as a maid, specifying how she should address the master. The man introduces himself as Enric. Evgenia says she'd like her younger brother and sister, who are twins, to go on the trip with her, since her sister is sick and since she will be going to a country that is bigger than this one. She wants to go to the doctor. The main character says that if he allows it, she will agree even to low pay. Suddenly, the guy walked up to the candle and lit it. A beam of light fell on his face. Evgenia saw the guy and thought he was handsome. And if she had such a face, it would improve her mood every time she looked at herself in the mirror. However, the main character does not understand why the guy is getting closer and closer to her. Endrik looks at the girl and says that for some reason, she looks familiar to him and asks if they have met before. Evgenia claims that this is the first time she's seen the gentleman here. Hearing this, the man again said that her face seemed familiar to him. However, the girl wondered how she could know. The gentleman says that he definitely saw her and suddenly says that he remembered. Enric calls the lady a child thief. Hearing this, the girl screams and asks, did he call her the kidnapper? However, the guy argues that how could she not know, since she's on the wanted list. The girl explains that she's never done anything like that. The gentleman says it's not his place to judge whether the accusations against her are true or not. However, the hiring was denied. Hearing this, the girl wondered how he would explain this situation to her. However, if he's telling the truth, she doesn't know what to do. Enric says it would be easier for him to be with a human who has no problems. The main character says that she completely understands what he means and says that she will go. However, the girl, standing at the door, asks the gentleman if she can ask him just one question. She asks him if he will report her, because she recently told him she has a younger brother and sister. Since they're still small children, if he decides to report her, please give him just a little time. Evgenia thought that she needed to protect Joshua and Sylvia at least before the police caught her. However, the gentleman replies that he will not report her. The girl asks if this is true. Enric says he refuses to get involved in troublesome and burdensome matters. However, in exchange, she must fulfill one request. The gentleman tells her not to say anything about this place. The girl says she understands and thinks he's afraid of something too. After leaving the room, the main character thought that, fortunately, he would not report her and she needed to get out of here as quickly as possible. Descending the stairs, the protagonist saw Mr. Elvery. He asked, "Lady, if everything went well." The girl explained that, unfortunately, they wouldn't be able to work together. Hearing this, the green-haired guy asks in surprise what she means and asks if the gentleman turned her down. The lady explains that's exactly what happened. Hearing this, the boy cried out that it was annoying, and looking at him, the girl thought that he regretted it more than she did. Evgenia says goodbye to her boyfriend and wishes him a good day. In return, the guy wishes her the same. Elvery thought he couldn't stand it anymore, and, entering Endrik's office, he apologized and asked, where are his manners? Since now is not the time to pay attention to such things, she asks why he refused the lady. The gentleman explains that there was a reason for this. The guy with green hair confirms. He really hopes to understand this reason. Enric reports that this girl is wanted. However, Elveri claims that this cannot be true, since he remembers her saying that she had a younger brother and sister. However, he does not understand whether these guys are really the children she kidnapped. The gentleman says that it may be so, and it may not be so. However, it's simply absurd for them to hire her. It's a big risk. After all, naturally, they cannot contact the person who was accused of a crime. Enric thought that it was still a shame, because they needed to leave Holland as quickly as possible. But the border was closed. The reason for the border closure is that the soldiers of the forcibly deposed hereditary duke are still not protected. As a result, border security checks became much more stringent than before. All entrepreneurs also expressed a desire to leave. Since in such a situation, the union of two foreigners could not help but arouse great suspicion. The gentleman thought that the number of people was too small to be considered official. Enric calculated that the nobles' overseas travel was the safest option, but he never thought that finding just one employee would take so long. The gentleman explains to Elveri that a large reward has already been offered for the lady. So much so that notices have even been sent to this very remote village, and he must understand what that means. Elveri says that it looks like the lady is being chased by a man with incredibly great power. Enric says he's right, as she could cause them many more problems. After all, the guy doesn't want to get bogged down in trouble just because they don't have time. However, the green-haired boy asks the gentleman if he can express one thought. Enric agrees to hear him out. Elveri says this has been bothering the gentleman since his arrival in this country, and so he proposes hiring Miss Evgenia. And if he signs, he'll get Miss Evgenia's signature. Enric spoils the sheet and asks if he listened to what he said with his nose and not his ears. The boy explains that he's heard everything clearly with both ears and therefore offers to hear him out until the end. Elveri explains that if she's truly wanted, she doesn't want to be caught. After all, a lady should be careful in her words and actions. The guy claims that the master is great and powerful because he has never failed in his strategies. That's why he suggests using each other. At this time, Enric says that he shouldn't have given the guy a chance to speak, and he thought that he couldn't deny everything Elveri had said. Because if they dragged things out any longer, things might get worse for them too. The gentleman agreed with the boy and suggested they go look for the girl. At this point, Enric considered whether he should reconsider his decision. At this time, the main character took a sheet of paper with her photograph and thought that she could not believe it, because she really was a wanted criminal. The girl thought that the gentleman had not lied to her because no one else in this village knew about her. The lady ponders the fact that Joshua and Celia's names are not listed on this sheet, and she does not understand why. The protagonist reflects that, in this kind of crime, information about the missing children is usually not shared, and it seems they're only looking for her. Evgenia thought, whatever the reason, she needed to hide the twins first. Suddenly, she overheard men discussing the hereditary duke's wanted poster. And in this wanted poster, they mentioned the name Shigel Halant. An unknown man says that these advertisements are posted in every corner of their village, and if you finish her off and cut off her head, you can get a reward. The girl read the ad and thought about it, that she could be worth 1,000,000 gold pieces, and for her that's an incredible amount. Stepping outside, Evgenia ran quickly and thought about it, that the situation was unsettled, and she needed to leave quickly. Suddenly, the lady remembered she'd promised the girl she'd buy her some candy. However, she understood that wandering around the area was dangerous. Walking down the street, the main character remembers where they used to sell candy. At the hostel, the men talk about looking for a man. Elveri takes off her hood, and he asks the man if he remembers him. The man replies that, of course, he remembers him. Elveri asks him to be brief, as they need the name of the girl who came to them this morning. The man asks if they mean the lady wearing the hood and informs them that she's not registered with them. The gentleman understands that, since she's not on the list, they should have left a little earlier. However, the man reports that 10 minutes have passed since the girl left. The men look at the girl lying on the floor and say it's definitely her because her hair color is the same. They claim she's a child abductor, and they'll give them 1,000,000 gold pieces for her. The man suggests his friend hurry up, as he's forgotten they're dividing the money based on principle. He then suggests they hurry up and drag the girl away. However, upon lifting the girl, they felt she was heavy and told her to stop pretending and get up quickly. Suddenly, he felt pain in his eye and cried out for his friend to grab her quickly. Evgenia tries her best to escape, and they hear him screaming after her that if he catches her, he'll never let her go, and only if she gets out of that alley. Suddenly, the girl felt pain, as if she'd collided with someone. Opening her eyes, she saw the gentleman and thought she needed to run. The gentleman tells her to wait and grabs her hand. The girl screams for him to let her go, but the man calls her name and tells her to calm down. He throws off his hood and says it's him, Enric. The lady was surprised to see him, not understanding what he was doing there. She cried out that he had promised not to tell her, that he would report her. Suddenly, a man runs out from around the corner and shouts that he's found her. Seeing the girl with the gentleman, the man says it was the first time he'd noticed her. The stranger says that if he caught her, and so that the lady does not escape, then they can give him some money because she is very cunning. The gentleman turns to Miss Eugenia and says that it will be dangerous now and suggests that she let go of her head. Suddenly, Enric pulls out a gun and points it at the men. However, they don't take it seriously, thinking he's playing a joke on them. Meanwhile, the gentleman wastes no time finishing them off and tells the girl that they've finally calmed down. Enric asks the lady if she's okay. The girl replies that everything is fine, but she doesn't understand why he was looking for her, since he even brought a gun with him. Evgenia mentions that there's a muffler, too. Hearing this, the guy is surprised and asks her if she knows what a muffler is. The main character replies that a silencer reduces the sound of gunfire. Hearing this, the gentleman remarks that she has a good knowledge of weapons. However, the girl insists that she doesn't know much. Enric says something he understands, as noble ladies aren't usually interested in such things. The main character replies that she's not of noble birth. The master wondered if she was pretending, or if she genuinely didn't know, since it was a new weapon that only a few, including him, knew anything about. However, he couldn't imagine a servant knowing about a pistol that had only recently been developed. Evgenia says she's late in expressing her gratitude. Since he'd helped her out so much, she thanks him. And if he hadn't happened to be passing by, she doesn't even know what would have happened to her. The gentleman explains that this is no coincidence, as he came to hire her. The girl is surprised to hear this, and he explains that he'll fill her in on the details and tells her to follow him. Enric says he thought about it again and realized there was no guarantee this would necessarily cause problems. However, Elveri continued to pester him. Moreover, given her situation, it was the most appropriate solution, and so he decided to hire her. As a result, the main character thought that this meant that the gentleman was going to use her, although she was worried, but still this was the best opportunity that was presented to her. The lady turns to the gentleman and says she will do as he says. Hearing this, the man says it's a smart answer. However, Evgenia does not understand what conditions are causing him to hesitate. Enric announces that he wants the lady to become his wife. Evgenia was surprised to hear this, as they had only met recently, and she had 2 children who looked like rabbits. The gentleman says that she has misunderstood everything and suggests that she listen to him first. Enric explains that the current situation is not very rosy. While there used to be people who crossed the border from time to time, their numbers have now halved. The girl says it means all roads out of the country are likely closed. The gentleman explains that this is a possibility, and therefore the most cautious course of action for now is to pretend to be family. Evgenia says she doesn't need to be a servant, but just pretend to be his wife. The gentleman confirms her words and explains that during the search, they will have to pretend to be husband and wife. Hearing this, the main character thought that maybe they should try it, and she says it's an excellent plan. Enric says that they will see each other later and he will wait for her in front of the hotel and suggests that the girl get ready. Arriving at the hotel, the lady sat by the door and thought about how she'd almost been killed because she'd been declared wanted, and the gentleman had greeted her with a pistol right in front of her. And it had been quite absurd when he'd asked if the children she was accompanying had been kidnapped. The main character realizes that, fortunately, he believed her. She reassures herself that everything is fine and she just needs to be more careful. She understands that if she trembles in front of the children, they will sense her anxiety. Having calmed down a bit, Evgenia enters the room and announces that she has returned and asks the guys if they have been waiting for her. Suddenly, Sally runs up to her and cries out that she saw the candy. The main character replies that, of course, she bought it because she promised. The girl apologizes because the candies are a little wet because of the rain. The little girl says it's okay because she thinks the candies are fine and wants to enjoy them. The young gentleman looked at the girl's hands and asked what was wrong. She replied that she was ashamed to admit it, but she had fallen and scraped them a little. However, Joshua is curious about how this happened. He worriedly asks the girl if she's hurt badly and if she's in pain. The boy offers to blow on her hands. After all, it's raining outside, and she needs to be careful. Evgenia apologizes for alarming them. However, the young gentleman insists she needs to be more careful. The lady agrees and asks the girl if she wants to eat some candy first, as she's about to change. Joshua suddenly asks if the lady works with this man. After all, the man who brought her here was very tall. But maybe not very tall, since he's a bit taller than average people. The main character asks the boy if he was watching through the window and says it was her employer. The young gentleman asks her if she is sure of his identity. The lady explains that he is unsure of her identity, so she was unable to find out about him first. Joshua says she's so naive to fall for such a thing, and he doesn't understand how she plans to survive in this cruel world. Hearing this, the lady is very surprised. Selly says shoo-shoo, after all, she thinks the lady is doing better in this world than he is. The little lady says that her brother has no social skills, and that is true. Hearing this, the young gentleman cries out that his sister must be on his side. The girl replies that she is always on his side, but simply cannot lie. The main character suggests that the two of them calm down. Suddenly, the young gentleman cries out, calling her name. He says that Evgenia is no different, as he's worried about her. The young lady thought she needed to stop teasing Joshua because he was pouting. She turned to the boy and told him that he had chosen her, not anyone else. Evgenia explains that she'll do anything to keep their promise, because he's a smart kid and understands what she's talking about. Joshua said he understood, but looking at him, the girl thought that even if he was trying to pretend to be an adult, no matter how you looked at it, he was still a child. The main character says they need to talk about work now because they need to know about it too. The lady explains that since the borders may soon be closed, they need to leave the duchy as soon as possible, and in order for everything to go safely, it was decided to go with her employer from. She asks if they understood everything. The boys respond that they understand, and the boy says they need to act immediately. The lady explains that they will first move to the hotel where her employer is staying, and they will do this right now. Evgenia announced that she had a husband. Selly was surprised to hear this, and so was her brother. The little girl says she congratulates them and asks when the wedding will be and whether he is handsome, tall, or rich. The lady replies that she thinks there's enough. However, the young gentleman asks, as he doesn't understand what she's talking about, maybe a wedding in their situation. And he's interested in where she got her husband from, since she said she was looking for work. Hearing this, the knight suggests the woman calm down. The lady suggests inviting someone of higher rank than him. She will report his rudeness and even take off her hat as he wishes. The man reflected on the fact that the head of public order and the landowner stood above him. After all, when ordinary people like them approached such high-ranking officials, they received nothing but a reprimand. Suddenly, the knight cries out that there's no need, the inspection is over, and he apologizes for the inconvenience. The girl orders them to continue on. Closing the door, she breathed a sigh of relief. She asked the children if they had been very worried. Evgenia says that, fortunately, it's all over. Cecile says that the guy looked really scary, and her brother agrees. Sitting in the carriage, the girl heard the gates finally open, and she thought that they were really leaving. Having passed through the checkpoint, the Duke approaches his assistant and says that this is the end of their agreement. However, the man was not going to stop, and in the meantime began to drive very fast. Suddenly, the children fall down in the carriage, and Eugenia asks if they're okay. The lady is worried about little Selly and her brother. She doesn't understand what the hell happened outside, since neither Enric nor Mr. Elveri is in sight. She guesses it must be the coachman's doing. The main character thought that she must somehow protect the children. The girl peers out of the carriage, and Enric shouts at her to get inside quickly because it's dangerous. He tells her to return to the middle of the carriage and protect the children. Enric suggests that the guy with green hair step aside, while he himself shoots at the wheel, thereby ending the escape. When the carriage stopped, the gentleman opened the door and asked if the lady and children were okay. The gentleman offers to take the children out of the carriage. He helps the lady out of the carriage. When Enric approached the groom, he saw that he had already died from the poison he had drunk. He thought that even the coachman had been bribed, and he couldn't understand where the information was leaking from. A worried Evgenia reports that Sally suddenly lost consciousness. The main character understands that something needs to be done, otherwise big problems may arise. The lady hands the girl over to Elveri and tells him to keep an eye on her. Suddenly, the lady sees a fruit and picks it, telling Sally to open her mouth slightly. And then she squeezes out a few drops. The young lady says it's very tasty and sweet. Joshua cries out that he was so worried about her. However, Sally reassures him and says she's fine now. The gentleman asks the lady if everything is okay. The woman replies that, judging by everything, the girl was in severe shock. Her temperature will soon go down since she ate some fruit, and she'll look for more fruit just in case. Enric, turning to Eugenia, says he needs to talk to her. She asks what he wants to say. The gentleman asks her what she was thinking when she stepped outside in the moving carriage, and asks about the fact that she has nothing to say. The main character explains that she could not allow them to be captured, as she wanted to attack the coachman and push him away and then take the reins. Enric, surprised, asks how she planned to attack him. Evgenia explains that she used the self-defense powder she used earlier. However, the master is curious why she didn't wait for him, and he asks if she doesn't trust him. The girl explains that she simply thought she had already accomplished her task. They left the duchy as agreed, and she felt he no longer needed her. The gentleman asks if that's why she opened the carriage door and got out. He says that he probably looked like a complete brat in her eyes. The lady suddenly objects and says that's not true. Hearing this, Enric points out that she's forgotten something. After all, according to their agreement, they would leave the Duchy of Holland together and reach the Ace Empire. The gentleman insists that it's now his turn to safely transport them to the Empire. And he says that if she can't trust him, then she should trust herself, the one who signed the contract. The lady apologizes because she didn't mean to offend him and explains that she wasn't sure because he wasn't an important person, just a minor character. The girl thought that this was a role that could be abandoned at any moment for the sake of the main character, and therefore, in order to survive, she had to take care of herself. But when she took Eileen's place, just as she had lost her life protecting the children, the same fate could have befallen her at any moment. And perhaps she should have given her life to protect Joshua and Selmia. The main character thought that perhaps she thought that this was how it should be. Enric says she's much more important than she thinks. Because self-sacrifice isn't the only solution, and even if she's thinking about her brother and sister, she should understand that being their guardian matters more. Hearing this, Evgenia thought she was thinking about changing the twins' future. Because in reality, she was the one involved in the affair, and she didn't understand what she'd been doing all that time. The lady says she's such a fool. The gentleman says she should have realized that, and asks if she can extend her hand. Enric took the handkerchief and bandaged her palm as it was wounded. The girl thanked him for it and said she would simply return it to him. The gentleman tells her to do what she wants and suggests that they return to the children. Evgenia saw Joshua on a horse and thought he really liked it. The gentleman announced that it was her turn. The main character tried to mount the horse but suddenly fell. Enric asked her if she needed help. The girl agreed and said she would be grateful if he would help her. The gentleman grabs the girl by the waist, apologizes, and helps her onto the horse. At that moment, the girl thought it was too much, because he was so close to her. Suddenly, the lady pushes the gentleman away, and he asks in surprise what she is doing. Evgenia explains that she's very tired and suggests they get going. Elveri asks, "Lady, if she's okay, and if she has a fever." The girl says she's just hot and fine, and when night came they decided to rest, and the master lit a fire in the forest. Enric mentions that they'll have to sleep in uncomfortable conditions. The lady agrees and says it's no big deal. The young gentleman says he doesn't mind, but he's just a little worried about Sally. The main character thought it was a good thing she'd taken her luggage, even though it had been a struggle. A sick child can't sleep on the bare ground. The gentleman announces that he and Elveri will remain on night watch and suggests that they go to bed early. Evgenia wondered if she'd be able to sleep, since this was her first time sleeping outside, and maybe she should figure out what she needed to do tomorrow. She considered giving Selmia another dose of medicine and checking on Joshua, just in case. Closing her eyes, the main character fell asleep and thought she heard someone singing a song, Children. However, looking at the children, the lady realized they were arguing, and she must have dreamed it. The gentleman asks the lady if she is awake. The girl, surprised, asks if he has gone to bed yet. Enric explains that Elveri has gone on reconnaissance missions and therefore needs to remain on guard. The lady says she'll be replacing him and suggests he go to bed. However, the guy says it's not worth it. Even if he lies down, he won't be able to fall asleep. Evgenia asks, surprised, if he suffers from insomnia. Enric replies that he has for a long time. The girl says that this doesn't mean he won't be able to fall asleep and suggests waiting a little while. Meanwhile, she's searching for something in her suitcase and says she's already found it. The lady pulled out peppermint oil and dried mint leaves from her suitcase. She said that if he drank them as tea, they would relieve his fatigue and even help with insomnia. Evgenia quickly brewed some tea and offered the gentleman a taste. Enric thanked her and said that this tea has a pleasant aroma. The girl asks if he still has a headache. Hearing this, the Duke, surprised, asks how she knew that. The main character explains that lack of sleep is often accompanied by headaches. The best oil to apply is to the temple and the back of the neck. The boy, looking at the bottle of oil, asks the girl if she wouldn't mind giving it to him. The lady says no problem, since the ointment is easy to obtain and she can still make it. Enric offers the girl a thank you and asks how much she wants. Hearing this, the lady objects and says there's no need, as it's merely a friendly gift to someone with whom you share joy and sorrow. Evgenia suddenly thought that there was probably a difference in their statuses, and she didn't understand why she could call them friends. The gentleman says that because it is friendly, he will accept it with gratitude and make good use of it. The main character claims it will definitely help. The guy asks the lady if she's studied herbs, because the self-defense powder she sprayed on the attacker is and first aid for Selly. Enric doesn't understand how the maid could have such knowledge. He suggests that perhaps she should run the pharmacy instead. Hearing this, the girl says he might be right. Evgenia explains that since childhood, she longed for a luxurious city life. However, after her father's death, she had no one to rely on and needed to find work, so she came to the city and here she is. The main character wondered what if she tried to remember something else. She then revealed that she had never studied herbs. The surprised gentleman asks when she started handling all this so well. The girl replies that he has a surprising number of questions for her today. Enric asks whether in a situation like this, there is no point in starting a dialogue. The lady reports that her father was an herbalist. However, she never studied with him because he wouldn't even let her near the herbs. The gentleman says it's not a skill you can learn by looking over your shoulder. He asks what day she learned it. However, he says that doesn't make sense. Evgenia thought that, if she thought about it, it was downright strange, because she learned about some aspects. And no matter how hard she tried to recall her childhood, nothing came to mind. After all, she had no memories whatsoever before a certain age. The girl recalls hearing from her father a long time ago about how, at age 5, she got lost in the forest. 3 days later, she was found at the highest point of the forest. She was safe thanks to wild animals. The protagonist thought it was a unique experience. However, she doesn't understand why she doesn't remember it. And if you think about it, it seems she knew the names of all the herbs from that time on. And this could be a consequence of what happened. The gentleman asks the lady what she's thinking about. The girl replies that she was wondering if she should perhaps study to become an apothecary. The young man says it's a good idea, since the empire has many precious herbs. The lady says it will happen temptingly. Dot asks if she's interested. Evgenia says she's interested because she'll be able to create a wide variety of medicines. Evgenia says that perhaps she too will be able to come up with a cure for insomnia. Suddenly dawn broke and morning arrived. However, most importantly, Selimia's condition had improved significantly. The little girl reported that she was now fine. However, the main character suggested she take some medicine, just in case. The main character thought about how hard it was for her to ride a horse, and because of the pain in her muscles, she also ate some medicinal herbs. Enric also trained Joshua, who showed an interest in horses. Stopping in front of the main gates to the empire, The young gentleman cries out with pleasure that they are already there. Evgenia thought the atmosphere was completely different from the one in the duchy, and the gentleman was saying that they were about to conduct a search. The lady asks if she needs to make an effort this time too. However, the gentleman reassures her and says there's no need to strain herself so much, as the inspection will be over quickly. Elveri suggests the lady not to worry too much. The knight calls Baroness Hari Tracen, and the little girl says that's her mother's name. The guard asks the lady to show her ID and her spouse's ID. The gentleman shows his documents. Suddenly, the knight cries out that he apologizes, saying it is an honor to meet him, and he orders the gates to be opened immediately. Enric suggests they go before it gets any louder, and at that moment, the protagonist thought about how easy it had been for them to get through. The young gentleman claims that he can wash himself and therefore suggests that the lady not enter his bathroom. Evgenia agrees with him and suggests that the boy quickly wash up and come back. After washing Sully's hair, the main character noticed that the color had faded a bit, and she considered dyeing it again. However, spending her cooled-off money on dye would be foolish. A woman explains to a girl that her hair has grown a little from her natural color. The girl asks if she needs to reapply makeup. The woman says she needs to lift her head to make it noticeable. The main character says that she will soon be able to break up with Enric and suggests that the girl wait a little. Elveri speaks with pleasure of finally returning home and getting a taste of his native city. He asks the lady how she liked it here. The girl replied that it was delicious. She looked at the gentleman and thought about how he was wearing gloves today. Sully says it was delicious and thinks she could eat it all day. The young gentleman says it would be nice. Enric asks the children if they've eaten and suggests they go first. Hearing this, the young gentleman cries out and asks what he means by that. The gentleman explains that this conversation is for adults only. However, Joshua doesn't understand why matters are always discussed only among adults, since he also wants to listen and insists he won't leave. Joshua says that today he can become an adult. Hearing this, the protagonist turns to the young gentleman and says she'll tell him later and invites the boy to go. As Joshua leaves, he calls his sister to join him. He tells them the meal was delicious because he ate his fill and wishes them sweet dreams. Enric says that they have put in a lot of effort and therefore suggests breaking up now. Hearing this, the main character thought that she knew they would have to part sooner or later, but she never thought it would be today. And she doesn't understand why she's upset. The girl says that they have been through a lot during this time, and thanks to him, they were able to get here. Hearing this, Elveri objects and says it was she who helped them. Evgenia, flustered, says she has a question and asks whether her wanted list is valid in the Empire. The gentleman says that the Empire does not receive a wanted list from the duchy, so it does not have to worry. Enric informs the lady that he would like her ID back, as they are good at spotting counterfeits. He thanks the girl for her efforts. The gentleman gives the girl a bag of money and says that this is the promised reward. The main character was very happy and thought about how much money there could be here. Elveri is informed that he has some business left and needs to prepare, and so he leaves. The gentleman gives the lady a locket and explains that he kept it under his clothes, and that's why no flaws appeared, because he treated it well. Eugenia asks if he'll leave right now. Enric says he still has things to do, so he needs to go. He says the Empire is much safer than the duchy. The gentleman says it's better to buy good things rather than cheap ones. After all, the price should include the buyer's safety. He suggests the girl remember not to show off too much. Hearing this, the lady says she understands and will keep it in mind. Enric asks the lady if she doesn't mind and suggests they go for a walk. While walking outside the city, the lady suddenly saw a huge tree and ran up to it, wondering how old it was. At this point, the gentleman looked at her and thought she definitely knew about the gun. And since this was classified information, when he returned to the capital, he would still have to report it. Enric says Miss Eugenia told him last time she knew about the guns. The girl replies that she does, but not in detail. The gentleman is interested in whether she knows how to shoot and use it. Upon hearing this, the girl objects and says that it was the first time she had seen him so close. The main character thought that in her past life, if a civilian had a gun, he would be caught immediately. Evgenia wonders why he's asking her about this. The gentleman seems to have some doubts about her. He replies that he's simply thinking about lending her the gun for self-defense. However, the girl objects and says that she does not need it, because even if she had it, she would not use it. Enric offers the lady this. The girl asks if she can take it since he didn't give it to her as a memento. The guy says he doesn't mind giving it to her. However, the girl asks, not understanding when she should return it. The gentleman replies that at their next meeting, or she can return it in a year. Evgenia says that if he doesn't come, she will bury him under this tree. The gentleman asks the lady what she is doing. The girl replies that she is using this stone tower as a sign. The guy says he feels like if someone kicks her, she'll fall apart. Hearing this, the girl smiles and replies that the world isn't so bad. Evgenia says that perhaps they won't destroy it like someone's sincere wish, and she thanks the gentleman from the bottom of her heart for all this time. The young gentleman asks Evgenia why she returned so late. The girl apologizes and asks if he's been waiting for her for too long. She suggests the boy go to bed. Joshua asks her how he can go to bed when he is consumed with curiosity about what happened there. She explains that she arrived late because she was seeing them off. The boy asks in surprise if they left without even saying goodbye. Evgenia pulls a pendant and a brooch out of her pocket and says she's returning these jewels to him. She explains that they were handled with the utmost care. Suddenly, the girl heard someone asking her when she would arrive. The lady asked Joshua what he was talking about. However, the boy insists he didn't say anything. And the main character thought so. That Selmia is talking in her sleep. The young gentleman claims he would have heard her too. Joshua turns to the girl and says that she's hearing all sorts of things because she's tired. He claims that this often happens to old people. Hearing this, the girl objects and says that she is not that old, since she is only 21. The young gentleman asks, what if she is still much older than him? And therefore she is old. The main character looked at the boy and thought that he felt very comfortable with her. Approaching the children's bed, the lady wishes them sweet dreams and thinks that she has a lot to do tomorrow, and therefore she needs to go to bed. Evgenia reflects on the fact that someone has definitely asked her when she'll return, and it seems like the voice is similar to the one she heard in her previous dream. However, she didn't hear it right now, and she doesn't understand what it is. The girl thought that she had not slept in a bed for a long time, and she felt very soft, comfortable, and cozy. The next day, while walking around the city, Selly says that she wants to eat a strange thing on a stick. The main character assures the girl that she'll have to eat whatever she's holding. Selly says she wants to eat that thing too. Evgenia says that since there's nothing she can do, she asks the girl if she'll share with her. The young lady agrees. The girl wondered where Shushu had gone, and saw him standing in front of the forge again. She thought that if the young master felt the same as Selly, she would buy him something. Evgenia approaches Shusha and suggests they go. The boy agrees. The main character says that they bought medicinal herbs and essential items. Upon entering the village information desk, the lady asks if they happen to have a map of Ace's empire. Joshua, surprised, asks Nuna why she needs the map. She explains that they need to find out which road leads to the Duke's lands. She asks him if he's forgotten about it. After leaving the store, Selly points to the other side and says she thinks it looks interesting. She says she'll go and take a look. Suddenly, the young lady starts to walk away quickly, and Evgenia asks her to wait. The girl screams and tells her not to run. Selly covers her ears with her hand and says that it is a grumble, and that they are both the same. The main character claims that if the young lady falls while running, she'll be in trouble no matter what. Selly doesn't understand why they're laughing and suggests they quickly go to her. Evgenia suggests they all go together. Sitting in bed, the main character and the guys look at the map they bought. The young gentleman is surprised that the Duchy of Gerace is so large. He points to the place and claims that if they come here, they will be able to meet their great-aunt. Evgenia says that her residence could be located in the capital of the empire, and therefore there is a high probability that his great-aunt will end up in this territory. The young lady says she has a question. The lady suggests she ask whatever she wants to hear. Sully asks if they'll be riding in the carriage again. Hearing this, the protagonist thinks that after what happened, the carriage ride will be difficult for the weakened Selmia. And since they're not in the duchy, they'll get there quickly. Evgenia said they'd take the train this time. Hearing this, the young lady was delighted. Joshua says his sister can ride in comfort this time. The main character looked at the children and thought how glad she was to see them happy. And when she dropped them off, her work would be complete. Evgenia understands that once she's separated from the twins, she'll return to a life of solitude. While that's what she wanted, she'll be lonely. The lady suggests that the boys prepare well, and when the girl arrives at the station, I read that they arrived at the station of the Duchy of Goratia, and they say that this is Goratia's domain. The young master says that it might be because this is a northern region, and it is colder here than he thought. The boy asks if they'll go to the Duke's house right now. However, the girl objects and suggests they get ready first. Eugenia explains that they are about to meet a noble lady and suggests that they first go to the hotel. Opening the lady's suitcase, she insists she definitely put clothes in there. Suddenly, the protagonist sees a scarf, and she thought about how she'd forgotten to return it to Enric. She didn't know what to do, and maybe she should bury it along with the black card. Evgenia thought that when she returned, she would have nothing left that would remind her of the master. The lady thought that in any case, it would happen in a year, and she would meet Enric, and so she didn't need to worry ahead of time. At this time, the young gentleman calls the girl, but she answers him after he calls her 3 times. Joshua claims he called her several times and asked what they should do now. The lady suggests they rest, as she'll be out for a bit. Suddenly, the main character felt that someone was stopping her, and it was Selly, who asked if she could go with her. Evgenia apologizes to the young lady and explains that she'll go look around alone. The lady suggests that maybe tomorrow or the day after, they'll take a walk together, and she promises this. Joshua says that he and his sister will be waiting for her, and suggests that the lady return quickly. The young gentleman tells the lady not to get lost yet. He suggests she look ahead to avoid falling. He warns her not to follow a stranger just because he offers her candy. Selly asks her brother if the lady will be back soon. The boy explains that she will be back soon and tells his sister not to worry, since this is none other than Eugenia. Joshua invites his sister to come closer, as they need to discuss something regarding Evgenia's work. Selly wonders what her brother wants to tell her. However, the young gentleman insists it's their secret. Evgenia turns to the guys, informs them that she has already arrived, and asks how they are doing. Joshua was surprised as the lady soon returned and asked why she looked so happy. Evgenia offers the boys to restore their natural hair color. She suggests doing it right now and asks what they think. However, the girl doesn't understand the children's reaction and asks what's wrong with them. She says she'll go get some water. After washing the children's hair, the lady says the color has washed out well for both of them. She then suggests that the young lady dry their hair first. Joshua says he doesn't like his hair color. However, Evgenia doesn't understand why, since it's his natural color. Celia explains that when this color comes back, but suddenly Joshua interrupts her and tells her not to talk nonsense. Hearing this, Evgenia asks the boy what was wrong. However, hearing no answer, the lady assumed the boys had quarreled. The next morning, Eugenia explains that it will be difficult for them to go straight to Duke Gerace's house. However, Joshua doesn't understand why. The protagonist explains that when she was out for a while, she met a vendor and asked if all the goods were good, because the village also seemed like a nice place to live. The salesman explains that thanks to the Duke, they live peacefully, and the girl says she wants to meet him at least once. The man explains that it's not easy for people like them to meet him, as it requires them to be an aristocrat. However, the woman who came near them says that even that won't help now. The protagonist asks why, and the woman explains that around the time all his relatives had gathered, Gerace's house stopped accepting any guests. They had said they were staying for the entire season. The man explains that the Duke declared he wouldn't open the door even if His Majesty the Emperor came. At that moment, the woman grabs him by the ear and says there's nothing a gentleman can't spill. Eugenia says that both the noble lady and the Duke should be here then. The man says she's right, since they say the Duke is staying in the capital and will return to his lands around that time. The main character, reflecting on his words, thought that she should at least come and see. However, she had to consider the situation at the Duke's house. The girl thought about what she'd better do, at least something. After this, the main character sent a letter, addressed to the noble lady Jacqueline Geracia. The letter stated that she would like to return the 2 missing flowers. However, she doubts the door to their home will open before the end of their family event. Evgenia consults with the young master about this course of action. After all, as relatives arrive, the number of workers will also increase. Therefore, she will take a job with the Jirasia family as a servant. The girl claims it may take some time, the young gentleman says. What, since she will have the opportunity to meet her great-aunt and offers to take this, because she needs proof of their status. Joshua shows the lady the jewelry and asks her what she thinks about going with it. The woman says she doesn't think it will work. The lady explains that this is not a jewel inherited from the Marchioness, and therefore there is little chance the noblewoman will recognize it. Suddenly, the young gentleman picked up a pair of scissors and cut off a chunk of his hair. Joshua suggests the girl show it to her grandmother when she meets him. And even if she doesn't find out anything else, it's a must, Evgenia says. That no matter how dangerous it was, she doesn't understand why he did it. The boy explains that everything is fine, since they will grow back anyway, and gives the hair to the girl. Dot claims that he is confident because she can handle it. The main character takes the hair and tells the boy not to do it again. She says she'll definitely show it to her no matter what. Arriving at the mansion, Evgenia thought that she couldn't believe that the recruitment of staff had already been completed. The girl realizes she's spent several days searching, but hasn't made any progress. They probably thought she was incredibly irresponsible for leaving her previous job without a letter of recommendation. The main character is worried about how to get there as she realizes they're almost there. Evgenia says the 2 hottest weeks of the year have begun, but come to think of it, it's actually autumn now. And even if Sally's coughing fits, she needs to stop by the herbalist's shop. The girl thought that she needed to buy some dried thyme and some more anise. Suddenly, the lady heard the man asking, with a cry, why he wasn't buying it, and whether the gentleman believed the expert's words. Looking at him, the main character thought she'd seen this man somewhere before. There was no way she could forget such a handsome man. The guy claims that the person who sent him on the errand said that it had to be a maverick. However, the seller screams and insists that Maverick and Heckin are equally effective. He shows the herbs and invites the guy to see how similar they are. He asks how many times he has to repeat this before he understands. Suddenly, the seller announces that he won't sell it and tells the guy to leave. The guy apologizes because he didn't mean to anger him. However, the man says it doesn't matter, because the weed is dirty and he won't sell it. The guy in the hood offers the seller to give him some weed, since he is buying it. Suddenly, the main character approaches them and addresses the guy, telling him not to buy this herb, since it is ineffective and completely useless. However, the guy does not understand what the girl is talking about and how she could know about it. The lady explains that his boss told him to buy a Morik, and perhaps he's experiencing joint pain. Hearing this, the guy says she's right and asks how the lady knows. The girl explains that Morik is dried, ground into a powder, and made into tablets. After all, it's an old folk remedy that reduces arthritis pain. The main character says that compared to it, Heckin only looks similar on the outside, but it is a completely different medicinal plant. Evgenia explains that if his boss has been taking Morik for a long time, then hockey will weaken its properties and the situation will become even worse. Hearing this, the seller doesn't even know what to answer and, screaming, asks if she's calling him a scammer. The man, screaming, asks how she dares to teach him, who has been growing medicinal herbs for 20 years. Upon hearing this, the girl was surprised, since he could not properly distinguish herbs with such experience. Evgenia claims he was trying to sell Heckin for profit. She says that would be a crime. She says there's a pharmacy nearby and suggests they go there and check. The salesman screams and says he's had bad luck today. The girl suggests the man surrender voluntarily to the police. Hearing this, the herbalist quickly runs away. The main character screams after him, suggesting that he not live like that. Evgenia invites the man to follow her, as the herb shop is in that direction. He agrees and thanks her for her help. The guy explains that he's never carried out such assignments. The girl explains that in such cases, he needs to go to the hospital and get a referral to the necessary pharmacy. While it may be more expensive there than in the shops, it's much safer. Hearing this, the hooded man thanks the lady for giving him such necessary advice. Evgenia says she was happy to help him and says she's leaving. The boy asks her if she's from the duchy by any chance. The girl asks him how he knew that. The fair-haired boy explains that her accent is slightly different, as a commoner might not understand, but he feels this unique rhythm of the duchy's inhabitants. The main character thought that he was from the duchy, and the guy does not know that she is wanted. The man says he'd like to thank her and asks her name. However, the girl says it's not worth it, as she didn't do anything wrong. She then says it's time for her to leave. The blonde guy asks the girl to wait because he wants to repay her. Evgenia says he should let her go first, and then they can talk. The man apologizes for grabbing the girl without permission. He explains that the lady may think it's just a courtesy, but she really has helped him a lot. The guy asks the girl if she doesn't believe him, however, he understands her. Because the man she met for the first time asks her name and grabs her, promising to reward her. After all, anyone in her place would be confused. The fair-haired man reveals that he works for the family of Duke Gervais. Although he holds the lowest rank, he can vouch for his identity, and therefore the lady can trust him. The man says that he wants to repay the girl for her kindness, thanks to which he will not be disgraced in their family. Hearing this, Evgenia thought that this was not a joke, and it seemed that he really did not know that she was wanted. The main character reflects on the fact that if the young man knew, he would not have been so persistent in trying to repay her in this case. The girl says that, frankly, she's having trouble finding a job. She asks if he could inquire about working for the Duke's family. The guy says he'll try to find out about the job. The lady asks how long it will take. The young man explains that it will probably be a couple of days and invites her to meet him there again at noon that day. The girl thanks him. However, the guy says she doesn't need to do that, as he's happy to be able to help her. The blonde guy asks the lady's name again. The girl replies that her name is Evgenia, and he offers to address her freely. The guy says his name is Xian, and he takes the girl's hand in his, after which he kisses her and also asks the miss to take care of him. The Ace Empire's capital is Korin. Enric says it took him longer to reach the empire than he expected. Elvery claims that he can nevertheless rest after the report, and asks if he is speaking correctly. Looking at the flowers, the gentleman thought they reminded him of someone, and he wondered if she had arrived safely. Elvery asks if the captain is listening. The captain replies that he is tired. The guy with green hair reports that they have been working a lot lately and suggests that it was probably much better when they were with Miss Eugene. The captain informs his partner that he is going to meet His Majesty and suggests that he wait. Enric reports that Ys has boundless glory and welcomes His Highness. The Emperor says he has finally returned. His Highness turns to the captain and suggests they rise quickly. He doesn't understand how a man who has been through hardship can remain on his knees. The Emperor reports that Enric did a very good job, and he was worried because the boy arrived later than planned. His Highness wonders if he had made a mistake, he wouldn't have been able to appear before his father and younger brother. Enric apologizes for causing His Majesty such distress. He says he will begin his report. The gentleman says that he is Captain Enric of Schatten, who has returned after completing the task assigned to him. He says he hid it in a safe place and is successfully protecting it. However, he requests an audience later. Hearing this, the Emperor says that he is glad because he succeeded in doing this. Enric says that, however, he was unable to complete the additional task given to him, and he was unable to find the seal of the former Duke. Hearing this, His Majesty asked what had happened. The captain explained that the people had agreed to help them. They died, and because of this, the location of the seal remained unknown. But after checking the dynamics of the capital of Helon, he discovered that it seemed likely that he, too, had not yet found the seal. The Emperor suspects the seal was hidden in a place where it would be difficult for the assistant to find it. He asks if there is anything else he should report to the captain. At this point, Enric thought about his conversation with Miss Eugenia about the pistol. It would be better if he left it alone. The gentleman informed the Emperor that this was all he wanted to tell him. However, the captain decisively informs the Emperor that he wants to resign. Hearing this, the Emperor said he was hearing this conversation again, and he thought about how 3 years had already passed since his first request for resignation, because he felt sorry to let go of the best warrior in the Schatten detachment. The Emperor considers that there is one solution and addresses the captain, saying it's time to send him on leave. He suggests returning to this conversation after his recovery. His Majesty considered entrusting all other matters to the captain. Meanwhile, Enric considered putting this off. The blonde guy tells Miss Evgenia he has good news. He's thinking about getting her a job. The girl was delighted to hear this. The guy said there was some bad news. The job wasn't very good, and it was in a laundry. The main character claims that she would be happy with any option and is very grateful to Mr. Xian for fulfilling her request. The lady wants to know when she can come for an interview. The guy says it's possible right now and offers to finish her tea, as they'll be meeting with the head maid. Hearing this, Eugenia quickly turned over her mug, and the gentleman saw her offering to drink in peace. However, the girl insisted that this was her usual speed and suggested they go to the Duke's house. Suddenly, the main character stumbles, and at that moment, a fair-haired guy grabs her. The girl thanks him for his help, and Xian asks if she is hurt. The lady says she's fine and immediately runs off as fast as she can. The gentleman tells her she'll fall again. After some time, Xian announces that this is the home of Duke Gerase's family and invites the lady to accompany him. The protagonist thought that she had finally arrived at the Duke's home. Evgenia thought that in order for the children to be able to get here, she had to succeed. Xian shows the lady around the palace and explains that this is the outbuilding where the servants and head butler live, as this building is used as the head maid's office. After passing through the hallway, the guy says that the head maid's room is behind that door. The girl then says she's completely ready to meet her. They knocked on the door, and a lady with glasses opened it and said that she had been waiting for them. However, the main character does not understand why the head maid personally opens the door and thinks that she should not have opened it and made such a mistake in her position. The main character greets the woman and says that she is glad to meet her, and says that her name is Evgenia. The woman says she's head maid Leia. She suggests they go inside first and talk there. Leia turns to Master Xian and tells him to go see the head butler, as he's been looking for him for a long time. At this point, Evgenia thought this sounded like a request to leave. However, the head maid told the boy that the head butler had told him to come immediately. Xian said he thought it was time and wished him a good conversation. The maid offers the lady a seat and asks if she's ever worked as a maid before. The girl replies that she worked for an aristocratic family. The head maid asks if the lady has a letter of recommendation. Evgenia reports that she doesn't have one, because she couldn't get it because a situation arose that required her to leave immediately. The main character thought that it would be difficult for her, because when applying for a job in a noble family, a letter of recommendation is required. The head maid turns to the girl and tells her that she will speak honestly, since the recruitment of personnel had already been completed 2 months ago, and the distribution of duties had been completed. However, if Leia were to hire the girl so suddenly, it might seem like a privilege. Besides, Mr. Xian had asked for it quite seriously. However, her situation proved complicated. The woman says the lady doesn't even have a letter of recommendation, and frankly, that's a bit of a challenge for her. Evgenia says she doesn't understand what Leia means, and she thought she couldn't hire her. The head maid says it will be difficult to find her a permanent position. However, she will provide her with the position until the end of the reception. Leia informs the lady that she will now be working as a maid in the laundry. She says it's hard work, but if she still wants to do it, she must sign a document. Evgenia heard this and was very happy and said that she would do everything possible. The head maid says the girl can come to her office tomorrow until 8 in the morning. Lateness is unacceptable. The main character thanked the woman, and at that time thought that she had managed to do at least something. The next morning, Joshua asks Evgenia where she's going. She replies that they woke up early and suggests the boys go to bed. However, Sully says he wants to see her off, and the young gentleman says he's had enough sleep. Evgenia picks up the little girl and kisses her, telling her she'll be back soon. Joshua looks at them and cries out that he refuses a kiss on the cheek. The main character stroked his head and told him he was downright untouchable. At this point, the young gentleman simply told her to come back soon. Joshua also tells Evgenia to eat well, make friends with her colleagues, and not talk back to her superiors, and just take care of herself. The main character thanked the guy for always worrying about her. The lady said she'll go and try her best. As she left the room, the girl realized that, although she hadn't said it, she was incredibly nervous. After all, it was her first day, and she couldn't afford to make any mistakes. Evgenia put the handkerchief to her chest and said that she wanted Enric to give her courage. Arriving at work, the head maid called all the maids and told them to listen to her carefully and take a short break and come to her. Leah reports that this is Evgenia's mission. From today, she will work with them. The main character says she's pleased to meet them and will try her best. And then the girl wonders if these maids would at least return her greeting. The head maid announces that this is the end of the introductions, and therefore everyone can return to work. Evgenia asks the maid what she should do. However, the red-haired girl replies that she can be used anywhere. The maid suggests the lady be careful not to damage anything, as the clothes cost more than a month's salary, and asks if she understands. Evgenia insists she will be careful. The main character, walking along with the basin, thought that she should try for the sake of the children. The maids who were washing near Eugenia were talking about how their master would soon return and they would finally be able to see her beautiful face. The girls excitedly expressed their desire to see their master up close at least once. At that moment, the main character thought that the master must be handsome. Eugenia remembered Enric and wondered if he could be more handsome than him. After working all day, Evgenia didn't even imagine the atmosphere would be so terrible. Since she didn't go through the proper hiring process, the maids definitely think she was promoted to this job. After work, the main character comes into the room and tells the guys that she has already arrived. Selly hugs the lady and says, "Welcome home." Joshua asks if she's eaten. The main character says that, as expected, the food at the Duke's house is quite good. Holding the bag the lady gave him, the young gentleman asks what it is. Evgenia explains that it's ingredients for a welcome gift. She suggests he try making it. The main character rolled up her sleeves and took the ingredients, explaining that after adding them according to her measurements, stirring until evenly mixed, and then pouring it into a wooden box, they will become a soft hand cream. The girl wondered if the maids would be cold towards her after using this cream. Selly wonders why the lady suddenly started laughing. However, her brother explains that she's not seeing things that way. The next day, Evgenia arrived at work and greeted the maids, but no one responded. Then the girl offered them some cream. She told them to take the required amount and apply it to their hands, but she wouldn't accept a refusal. The main character takes the red-haired girl's hand and tells her to pretend that she was deceived and try. However, the maid asked what it was and said she didn't need it. As she rubbed the cream in, she noticed her hands were damp and was surprised. After her words, all the maids smeared their hands with cream and asked where she bought it. The main character replied that she did it herself. The red-haired lady asks how she made it. Evgenia says it's simple and masterful, and if they want, she can bring more. After this, the red-haired girl says her name is Genia, and she can call her by her own name. Another maid also says her name. And at that moment, the main character thought about how irresistibly charming she was. After working for several days, the main character realized that her lower back hurt. Suddenly, Mr. Xian asks Eugenia if she would mind giving him some of her time. The main character says she doesn't mind, but he doesn't have to come here so often. The guy explains he was just passing by because he's also worried about her. The girl with red hair says that they take good care of Evgeny and tells the guy not to worry. Xian thanks Jenny. Surprised, she asks if he knows her name. He explains that he does, as she is a friend of Miss Eugenia's. The blonde guy says that he almost forgot to give it to them, and invites the girl to eat it with the others. Evgenia thanks the guy and says it's for him. He gives her gifts every time, and it's okay if he doesn't take care of her. Xian claims that it is nothing, because it is his little joy, and so he asks the girl not to refuse him this. The boy announces that the Duke's relatives will be arriving soon, and they will all need to gather at the entrance. The man says he must leave. After the guy leaves, Jenny asks what's going on between them. Evgenia, surprised, replies that there's nothing between them. However, the girl doesn't understand what that means, as she'd heard that she came here on Mr. Xian's recommendation. The redhead claims there's been an unusual aura between them since their first meeting, and asks if they haven't even held hands yet. However, Evgenia counters, saying she didn't like her the first time they met and doesn't understand how the girl could have seen through anything. The heroine thought that she had no time to think about Lord Xian right now. After all, she had to meet the noble lady as soon as possible. The girl reflects on the fact that her letter had gone unanswered and that she had difficulty entering the main building where the noble lady resides. She thinks that if she goes there, she might be thrown out. Jenny tells her friend that the head butler is now looking at her. Evgenia looked at him and saw Mr. Xian standing next to him. He was also looking at her, after which the young man winks at her, which embarrasses the main character. The girl with red hair says something about it. That's what she thought, that there was something between them. However, Evgenia objects and asks if she's okay. She says that if she's sick, the girl can give her medicine. At this point, Lilia thought about how this girl was definitely responsible for the noble lady's clothing and bedding. She didn't understand what to do now. Hearing this, Evgenia asks if she's having any difficulties. However, the girl wonders why she needs to know. Evgenia explains that Lilia simply looks serious, and she thought she might be able to help her. But apparently, it doesn't really matter. Lilia mentions that her parents have decided to come. The protagonist asks when they're arriving, and the girl explains that she made a mistake with the date and told her parents to come today, not tomorrow. However, she is not finished with her work yet and does not even know if she will arrive on time. Hearing this, Evgenia thought that this was her chance and told the girl that she could replace her because she could go home first. Hearing this, Lilia asks if she is serious and is interested in why Evgenia agreed to this. The main character says they should help each other in difficult times. However, they can't keep their precious parents waiting. Lilia thanks Evgenia and says she'll definitely repay her. However, the girl suggests they end the conversation before they get scolded. After some time, guests arrived. A man in a red jacket asked the butler if His Excellency had returned. The butler reports that he was supposed to leave the capital at this point and says that he will arrive soon. The man asks how long he's been living in the capital, since he should be focusing on raising his heir. The butler says that the owner takes this issue into account and suggests that the gentleman not worry about it. The aristocrat says he's pleased, as he'll be able to see the head of the family often. However, he's completely forgotten and says he needs to greet the lady. The butler says he'll show him the way. The main fire chief thought about it, because it doesn't seem like the owner of this house has a good relationship with his relatives. The head maid announces that everyone can return to work. Evgenia suggests that Lilia leave the work to her. Upon hearing this, the girl thanks her. Arriving at the room, the main character says that she needs to start work and finish as quickly as possible. Evgenia barely had time to do everything and sat down a little to rest, and remembered that she had heard that the lady changes into her pajamas at 9 o'clock. The girl thought about how she still had a little bit left, and she would fold the last blanket. She was nervous and was thinking about how she would succeed. The lady pulled out the white handkerchief again and asked Enric to help her this time too. As she folded the blanket, the girl thought about how the responsible maid would come and take it all away. After all, the mistress had to see it, and she placed the young master's cut hair in the basket with the pajamas. The next day, the head maid asks Lilia what she did. However, the girl doesn't understand what she's talking about. Leia insists she didn't even pretend. She didn't know what they were talking about. She asks if she's not the one in charge of the mistress's laundry, and why she put something strange in the mistress's clothes. Lilia claims she didn't do anything wrong. Suddenly, the main character reveals that she did. Evgenia explains that she mistakenly left her item in the mistress's clothing. She asks if the mistress checked its contents. The head maid says that the mistress checked, and that is why she told her to find and bring to her the one who did this. Leia asks Evgenia if she really did it. The girl doesn't object and begs for forgiveness. However, the head maid suggests that she follow her and beg her mistress for forgiveness. The main character says she will apologize properly. At this time, Eugenia thought that she would finally meet a noble lady. The head maid informs the mistress that, on her instructions, she has brought a maid from the laundry. Evgenia looked at her and thought that she was the children's great aunt. The lady tells the head maid to leave, and Leia tells her that if the mistress needs anything, she can call her at any time. The main character says that she is glad to meet the lady, and says that her name is Evgenia. The woman says the girl played a funny trick on her clothes. Upon hearing this, Evgenia explains that she's very sorry. She needed to see the woman for one reason and couldn't think of another way, so she acted so rudely. Evgenia asks her mistress to listen to her, and she will gladly accept her punishment later. The woman says she's listening. The girl thanks her for giving her a chance. Jacqueline Hannah Geracia is a woman, whom in high society is considered the ideal example of a noble lady. Moreover, she was the head of the Duke of Gerace's family for a long time. The protagonist can't believe she's standing in front of such a man. She realizes she's trembling, but she has to do it. Evgenia says that she dares to ask if the woman saw what she sent her. The lady reports that she saw that she once had the same hair color, however, she has not seen him for a long time. Jacqueline says blue is the color of her parents, family when red liquid was mixed in, and it began to manifest as an atavism. The woman says that only she and her younger sister had this hair color, and later her sister's daughter was born with it. The woman asks the girl where she got this hair. After all, she heard that her niece had already died. Evgenia says she knows about this because she worked at her residence. But those she brought with her are the children of her niece, the Marchioness of Keratin. Hearing this, Jacqueline was surprised, and the girl claims that everything is exactly as she said. Evgenia reports that she has brought her nephew and niece here. She also says that the young master and young mistress are alive. The main character asks the lady to meet the young master and young lady since they have no one else to rely on. Jacqueline says this leaves her a little confused. Hearing this, the main character insists she's not lying, as one of the children cut his own hair and asked to see it. The young gentleman said the woman would definitely recognize them, and she asked the woman again to meet them at least once. At this time, Evgenia thought that this woman did not believe her or had doubts. The protagonist reflected on the fact that, as an adult responsible for the empire's large family, she must put it first. Since the children had left home in an unusual way, problems could arise in the future. The lady thought that perhaps this woman wouldn't take them. Evgenia fell to the floor, and screaming, he begs the lady to help the young lady and the young master. The girl explains that they asked for her ordinary maid and endured this difficult journey without any complaints. The lady says the children said their grandmother would definitely help them. She again asks the lady to meet with the children. Jacqueline says she thought the children were dead too. However, by the time she heard the news and learned what had happened, it was too late. The woman closed her eyes and thought that she should see them at least once. The mistress orders the maid to move the children and rise from her knees. Hearing this, the girl is delighted and thanks her. Jacqueline says that if this all turns out to be a lie, she will never forgive her. The girl says she understands everything. The lady shows the letter and says she believes it was also sent by Evgenia. The lady says everything is correct. The woman says that when she first saw it, she was curious about what it was about. However, she ignored the letter, thinking it was someone's joke. The lady says that if these children are really alive, then she should not have ignored it. Jacqueline insists there's no need to put it off any longer and invites the girl to see him tomorrow at this time. She's also interested in whether she can bring the boys here, without being seen. The protagonist says she'll do it. The woman agrees and says she can go, since they'll see each other tomorrow. As she left, the girl said she was very grateful to the lady. Late that evening, Evgenia made the bows. Looking at them, I thought that she did quite well. However, the main character remembers that she was planning to buy new clothes because Joshua asked her to, but she was so busy that she completely forgot about it. Evgenia thought she was glad she'd made it on time, and looking at the jewelry, she hoped Joshua and Selmia would like it. Suddenly, Evgenia heard a voice say that he had been waiting. The girl said that everything was correct, as she had been waiting for this moment for a long time. But she looked at the bed and saw the children sleeping, and she wondered why there were no photographs in this world. Because she wanted to take a picture of them at least once. Sitting next to the children, she thought that soon they would truly be separated, and she would no longer be able to even watch them sleep. The main character wished the children good night and went to bed herself. Evgenia offers the children breakfast in the morning. Turning to Selmia, she remarks that she seems especially cheerful today. The young woman replies that she has the day off, and Joshua, surprised, asks why. The main character explains that sometimes people who work need to rest, and so she has something else for them. The girl gives the boys pendants that she painted into bows that evening. Selly enthusiastically says they're very beautiful, and she wants to wear them every day. Evgenia suggested buying some nice clothes to match their brooches. The boy was surprised, but the girl was delighted. The lady asks the young gentleman if he would like to go for a walk with her. Joshua says that if she wants to relax, she'll do so, as this day should be especially for her. Hearing this, the girl thanks him and suggests the children hurry up and eat breakfast, as they have a lot to do today. Sitting at the table, the protagonist reflected on how long they hadn't had breakfast together. Had she known this would happen, she would have eaten with them more often. Evgenia thought she wished time would pass more slowly now, so they could spend a little more time together. Walking down the street, the main character leads them to the dressing room she'd mentioned and invites them inside. Suddenly, Joshua says that he will just go, and the girl asks in surprise why and maybe he doesn't like it. The young gentleman objects and asks how she brought them to such an expensive place. The protagonist explains that he doesn't need to worry about that. However, the boy suggests they simply go to the market. Evgenia says she didn't want to resort to this method and tells Sally to hold him. The lady grabbed Joshua's hand on one side and the sister on the other side, and in this way they dragged the boy inside the boutique. The young saleswoman greeted them and told them they could see the outfits that were popular today, as the fabric was sourced overseas and the clothing was high quality. A few minutes later, the young master and young mistress stood there, dressed in new, expensive outfits. Joshua asks if they need to dress up like that, and Sally enthusiastically says that the dress suits her very well. Looking at the children, the main character thought they were truly angels descended from heaven. After all, they were growing quickly every day, and it was true. Joshua asks, "Lady, if it's cheap here," and suggests leaving before it's too late. However, Evgenia objects and says that they should wear clothes that suit them. Hearing this, the boy, surprised, asks what she's talking about. Evgenia explains that they're going to a meeting with their great aunt and therefore they must dress nicely. The children wonder if this is true, and will they be able to meet their grandmother? The main character assures them that they will be able to meet her this evening, therefore they will have to greet her politely. The lady says that it is time for them to return, and she will take them to the Duchy of Jurasia. Evgenia says that the guys did a good job of following her despite her shortcomings. Arriving at the estate, the girl informs them that the noble lady Jacqueline Hannah Gerace is waiting for them at that door. She asks the boys to follow her, as she will be escorting them. The young gentleman says that they have more important matters to attend to now and suggests that his sister not say anything. Eugenia informs the lady that she has brought the children of the Marquis of Seriton, and the woman says that she was waiting for them so much. Joshua says he's pleased to meet Lady Jacqueline Hannah Geracia. His name is Joshua Ron Keratin. The young lady says her name is Selmia Jenna Keratin. The young gentleman apologizes for their unexpected arrival and says they are deeply grateful that she willingly agreed to meet with them. Madame says that, to be more precise, this is not their first meeting, because when she arrived in the duchy and after Mia gave birth, she saw him for the first time. Jacqueline says the children have light blue hair and golden eyes, like her niece. And they are indeed her niece Mia's children. The woman says a great tragedy has befallen them, and she's so sorry she couldn't find them sooner because they've been through so much during this time. Joshua, surprised, asks the lady if she knows them. The lady replies that of course she does, since Mia was her goddaughter. Upon hearing her mother's name, Sally begins to cry. Jacqueline cries with her children and talks about Mia she was able to leave them and go away. The woman says that she is very happy to see them because they are her beloved grandchildren. The lady encourages the children to have a good time and to eat plenty. Jacqueline turns to Evgenia and says that it wasn't easy for her to bring her children across the border, and for that she owes her a great deal. However, the main character objects and asks the mistress not to say this. Evgenia wonders what will happen next with the young master and mistress. The lady says she will have to take care of them, since these children are her last living relatives. Hearing this, the main character is surprised. Jacqueline says she doesn't yet know whether they will live in the residence. And since she's not the head of the family, the children will live there as her guests until their son returns. The main character says she understands and thanks the woman. As she leaves, Evgenia thinks she too will stay until the children's move is resolved. And children may feel anxious about the change in their lives. It's worth helping them adapt more quickly. Evgenia tells the lady what she needs to say about her situation, and the woman agrees to listen. The girl says that if she allows it, she wants to work in the laundry again. Hearing this, Jacqueline was surprised and asked if she needed another reward. Evgenia explains that the young master and young mistress staying here and her working as a maid are two different things. The lady agrees with her and says let it be her way. Zachatina tells Evgenia to go and call Leia, and then she can come back. Suddenly, the children became worried, and seeing them, Evgenia suggests that they not worry, as she will come to see them tomorrow after work. Joshua agrees, and Sally insists they'll definitely see each other tomorrow. The lady bids them farewell and good night. The next day, Mrs. Eugenia knocks on the door and apologizes for disturbing them since she came to see them. Entering the room, the lady asks if everything is well with the young master and young mistress. She says she found some free time and came to them a little early. Joshua says he's doing fine, and Selly asks if she's finished. Evgenia says she'll have to get back to work after lunch. The main character says that she will come tomorrow too and asks the guys if they can wait. The baby claims that he can wait as long as it takes, but treated them the same way as before. The young gentleman claims he agrees with his sister and, of course, understands her situation, but he would also like Evgenia to treat them like she used to when they were alone. The boy explains that it's more like her. Hearing this, the main character wonders if she's been thinking too coldly, and perhaps she's stopped caring about the children's feelings. Evgenia asks Joshua from Selly to forgive her and asks if they were very scared. She says she didn't know they thought that and is very sorry. The young lady says it's okay because she understands, and Joshua insists she doesn't need to apologize. The boy suggests that the lady go to work and asks if she will be late. The lady says that she has to go. Evgenia says the head of the house will take care of them later, so they won't have to present themselves to the Duke in a better light. She asks the boys if they can. Arriving at the laundromat, the main character apologizes for being late. The maids ask her why she is late and tell her to go to them quickly, since there is a whole mountain of work left here and she needs help with it. While washing gloves, Evgenia doesn't understand who has so many of them and who they belong to. Suddenly, the girl realized these gloves reminded her of someone, and it seemed to her that when she recalled Enric's face, her fatigue vanished as if by magic. The head maid says she was told the master is returning and telling the maids they need to get ready soon. Hearing this, the main character is surprised, as it was so sudden. Evgenia thought she should just do it and leave. Suddenly, a young gentleman called her, and he tells her to wash the blanket so others won't find out. Looking at it, the main character remembered that this child was the son of the Baron's broken family. The girl says she'll wash it later and offers to put it next to the basin. However, the boy says that would get him caught and asks to wash it right now. The lady says that she cannot now, as she must go to greet the Duke. However, the boy insists that this is an order, and he tells them to wash it now because he will come in 30 minutes and check. The protagonist reflected on her curiosity about the Duke's appearance, but she wouldn't be able to find out today. She figured everything would be fine if only one person was missing. The maids say the master is the youngest person to become a knight. Moreover, rumors circulate that His Majesty has created a special organization. At this time, the butler claps his hands and says that the gentleman is very tired because of the long journey. The butler says they're greeting the head of the family. Enric says he hasn't been here in a while. The butler says that since the master has returned, all the invited relatives have arrived. Elveri turns to the captain and says he needs to tell them something. Since they've completed the mission, he thinks it's time to take a vacation and asks how much time he can give them, a month or a year. Enric says that he can go home now, but he should come to work tomorrow. Hearing this, the green-haired boy cried out, asking if he was serious. After all, this wasn't a vacation, and he was forcing him to return to a forced march. Elveri, saddened, asked if His Excellency could hear him. The butler tells the gentleman that he is still full of energy. The gentleman replies that he is quite full and asks how his mother is. The butler replies that she is fine, and the master orders him to tell her that her mother should come to his room later and asks if there is any other important information. The head of the family says he understands everything and will go now. Entering the room, Enric speaks. He hasn't seen his mother in a while. She says, "Welcome, after all, he's worked hard." His mother asks if her son is hurt, and it seems to her that he's grown even more since their last meeting. Enric says nothing special has happened to him. However, he's interested in how his mother is doing. The woman says she's still experiencing the same thing. She says she made some tea in advance and invites her son to try it. After tasting the tea, the gentleman thought that the aroma was reminiscent of the mint that the girl had given him. Enric asks why his mother sought him out. The woman says she wanted to discuss something with him. Jacqueline asks her son if he remembers Mia. He replies that he does, as he met her once as a child. And asks if she is her goddaughter. Mom says that everything is correct, because recently a man came here who brought Mia's children across the border. Hearing this, the boy thought that the borders of the Halland Duchy must be closed for now. He asked if his identity had been established and whether the children were Mia's. The woman says, of course, since the hair color looks the same as hers in her youth. and he should know that blue only runs in their family, and the maid who brought the children was very kind. Hearing this, Enric was surprised, because the children and the maid in the current situation having crossed the border, and for him this is an impossible action. Jacqueline claims that she wants to take care of these unfortunate children until they become adults, and asks her son what he thinks about it. Enric says he must meet the maid first. However, his mother is surprised that he wants to meet the maid first and not the children. The master apologizes and says he must go. The mother understands that her son must be tired and apologizes for calling him so suddenly. However, Enric insists that everything is fine. Left alone, Jacqueline thought about how she still found it difficult to understand what was hidden in his heart. And today, for some reason, it was especially difficult. The young gentleman in the red jacket informs the lady that there's no trace, and she's done a good job. He takes his blanket and says that next time he'll ask her to wash it too. The head maid calls Evgenia and says that she needs to go with her. Meanwhile, the maids are talking about how it seems Evgenia will be scolded again about the herbs, since last time she said she left herbs on her mistress's washed clothes. However, the girl insists she heard everything. Evgenia realizes her friends have been laughing ever since they found out she messed up the laundry. However, she doesn't understand what's happening. The main character asks the head maid where they're going. The woman says her master wants to see her. The lady is surprised to hear this. Evgenia doesn't understand why he's calling her when he's just arrived. Perhaps he's meeting the children, or perhaps it's because she didn't greet him with the other maids. Leia looked at the girl and suggested that she hurry up and enter the master's office. The head maid announces that she's brought the girl he mentioned. He orders her to come in. Leia says the master said only Evgenia should enter. Entering the office, the main character apologizes, not understanding what she did wrong or why she was summoned. The girl bows her head and says this is their first meeting. However, Enric says this isn't their first meeting, and they've seen each other before. He looks at the girl and says so that she wouldn't tell him that she didn't expect to see him here again. Seeing him, the main character was surprised because she didn't understand what he was doing here, because this was the owner's office. Evgenia apologizes and says that she is glad to meet the gentleman. He invites the girl to sit down, as they have a lot to talk about. Enric says he called her right after his meeting with his mother. After all, she said the maid had brought his nephews. Eugenia explains that he was right, as these children are not her younger brother and sister. After all, they are the children of the Marquis of Saraton's family. The girl explains that she took them with her because there was no one in the duchy who could take care of them. The master says that she then crossed the border with him. Enric says the children, who were allegedly kidnapped by the lady, are the missing heirs of the Marquis' family. He accompanied them without knowing it. Evgenia apologizes and explains that she couldn't act differently to protect the children. The gentleman says it was difficult for the children too. Enric asks the lady whether, shortly before the disappearance of the Marquis and Marchioness, she was asked to ensure the safety of the twins, Stairs. The main character explains that no one asked her, and she wanted to help the young master and young lady because she was worried about them. The lady says she has a request for the master, asking him to allow the children to stay here. She asks Enric to become their guardian. Hearing this, the guy thought for a moment and asked Miss Eugenia if she knew what a development meeting was. The girl thought about it and said that it was not a meeting that relatives were going to in order to establish friendly relations with them. The gentleman says the development meeting is an event where all the children from the related collateral lines demonstrate their qualities. It also serves to select the heir who will lead the family of Duke Jerez. Evgenia understands that the children will soon become new candidates. The gentleman says that's possible. The two children she brought with her would threaten his authority as head of the family, as well as the peace within the Duke's family. Enric wonders in this situation if there is any reason why he should take them under his guardianship. Hearing this, the main character understood what the development meeting meant and how important it was. Evgenia claims that the gentleman is still young, and she does not understand why a child from another family branch should be appointed as the heir. The guy replies that it would take a long time to explain the reason, but all the relatives have agreed to his method of selecting an heir through an ability test, so there won't be any problems. Enric wonders if they should leave the children alone in this situation. Hearing this, the main character thought that the gentleman was right, and this could be dangerous for Salmia and Joshua. However, Evgenia is wondering if he will leave the children. Enric emphasizes continuity, as he is currently the head of the family. The lady asks if those who interfere with the decision made by the head of the family do not thereby disturb the peace in the family of the Duke of Gerace. The gentleman agrees with her and says that he thought so too. He looked at the girl and said that she's still smart and resourceful. Enric says he understands what the lady is trying to convey and that he'll think about the details. Evgenia thanks the gentleman, because upon hearing this, she was very happy. The boy asks her if she could please stop calling him master, but she replies that she is a servant in his family. Enric tells her to stop talking like that and suggests she just call him by his first name as she used to. She agrees and says his name. The main character says that she needs to go and asks if he has been sleeping well lately. The guy replies that, thanks to her, he sleeps well. Hearing this, the lady says she's glad the effect worked, and she says she'll prepare more for him. The lady reflected that she had said this herself, but she didn't want to leak gossip out of thin air. She said she could pass it on to him through Joshua. Enric suggests the girl simply leave them in the stable where his horse lives. Since there's only one black horse there, finding it shouldn't be difficult. The lady agrees, and he says he thinks it's time for the girl to go back. She says she was very happy to see Enric again. The guy says he's glad to see the lady is doing well. He suggests she take care of herself until they meet again. Left alone in the room, the Lord says that he didn't even think that they would meet again under such circumstances, because she is like that. After a while, Cedric tells the gentleman that he's brought him, as he said, and the guy invites him in. And then he thinks there's no time to even catch his breath. Entering the room, the man says it's been a while since they've seen each other. The Duke confirms his words and asks if everything was all right. The man replies that it is thanks to him and says that he needs to talk to him a lot. Meanwhile, Evgenia informs the lady that this drink will help her ease the pain. The woman asks if it's herbal and says she'll try it. However, the mistress does not understand how the maid realized that she had joint inflammation. The girl explains that she had previously met her servant who was looking for herbs to relieve pain, and so she learned about it by accident. The woman says she understands then and thanks her for her concern. However, the girl says it's later, and she asks why the lady called her. Jacqueline says that Joshua and Sally can now stay in the mansion, but it's temporary. After all, after what Enric said at the end of the development meeting, it was said that it would be a good idea to treat this as a serious matter. The woman wondered what Enric had asked Lady when he called her. Hearing this, the protagonist thought she shouldn't go into details. Evgenia replies that he asked if it was true that she worked for the Marquis family. He also expressed his condolences, saying that they had a hard time bringing the young master and young mistress. However, the woman says that the boy is still as rude as ever. Jacqueline advises Evgenia to be more careful in her actions. Since the children are not yet grown up, she should think of herself as their servant and speak accordingly. The girl asks, a little surprised, if this is allowed to her as a commoner. The lady asks who in this residence deserves this, if not her. At this point, the girl thought about how she would soon have to leave. However, she would support the children at least for a while. Evgenia doesn't know what to tell Joshua and Selmia. Sergei should warn them in advance of his departure, because it's worth warning them in advance of his departure. The main character understands that if she continues to be in the Duchy family, she may make a mistake, and then harm may come to the children. The lady remembers that she promised them she would find them a better guardian than she could, and so her business ends here, because she will try to the end. The girl informs the boys that she has arrived. The surprised Geminis, crying out, ask when she arrived, as they hadn't heard her knock. The main character asks what the children are doing. They reply that they were just practicing. Letter. The young lady says that her brother doesn't want to show his handwriting because it looks like a crawling worm. Upon hearing this, Joshua objects, believing it to be untrue. However, his sister begins to tease him. And looking at them, the main character does not understand why they are deceiving her. Since she remembers well the last time he wrote a contract, maybe she should pretend she doesn't know anything. Evgenia approaches Joshua and tells him that, since he's been practicing his handwriting, he'll now write her letters. However, the boy replies that he sees her every day and doesn't understand the purpose of the letters. The lady says they won't be able to see each other every day anymore. Hearing this, the young gentleman doesn't understand why. The girl explains that yesterday she came to meet the Duke. whom they also know. And this man is Enric, who came here with them. Sally reports that this uncle is incredibly handsome, and Joshua says that he rides horses. Well, upon hearing this, the children were delighted. The main character thought that she had to tell them anyway. The lady says that they can stay here, but she now needs to look for a new job. Hearing this, the young lady wonders why she needs to look for a new job. The lady explains that she wants to say that after thinking it over carefully, she has decided that their contract has now come to an end. Hearing this, the children were very surprised because they did not understand what Evgenia was talking about. Joshua asks if she is offering to finish the contract and therefore if she is talking about leaving. The main character explains to the children that she's not leaving right now because she can't stay with them forever and therefore needs to find another job. Joshua mentions that they haven't yet secured their place in the duchy. He asks her if she's forgotten the contract she signed with him. Even after receiving the ring, Evgenia reports that this cannot be, since it remembers clearly. Joshua shows the girl the contract and asks her to look at it carefully again. It states that she must take them to Duke Gerace's family and arrange a meeting with their new guardian. The young gentleman, screaming, claims that they have not met with the guardian, and if she leaves now, the contract will not be honored, and the penalty will be 1,000,000 gold. Evgenia explains that their guardian is the noble Lady Geracia. However, the boy objects, saying that his grandmother said nothing had been decided. She replied that everything would be clear once the development meeting was over. Joshua claims that this is why Eugenia is still their guardian. Evgenia thought that she had never even imagined that the children would react like this. Moreover, the ring she received under the contract was fake and therefore worthless. The girl realized that such a condition hadn't been discussed from the start. However, she decided there was no need to discuss it. For now, she'd let things continue as they were. After all, with time, the children would be able to think things through calmly too. Evgenia explains to the children that she understands everything. She says that's enough for today and suggests they talk about it tomorrow. The girl, holding the boys' hands, tells them that it's too late today and it's time for them to go to bed and wishes them good dreams. Lying in bed, Sally asks Eugenia not to leave until she falls asleep, otherwise she will cry. The girl agrees and assures the young lady that she will be by her side. The young gentleman asks the lady if she couldn't just wait a little longer, at least until she comes of age. The protagonist is surprised to hear this, as she doesn't understand why she has to wait until that age. The boy explains that he's just been thinking about something, and that if she waits a little, he'll grow up quickly and provide her with a rich life. He suggests that the lady will be able to live a luxurious life, and so he offers to stay by her side until then. Evgenia says that if he wants to grow up quickly, he needs to go to bed. However, the boy assures her he's serious and not lying. As she left the room, Evgenia reflected that the children's reaction had been stronger than she had expected, as she had made this decision without thinking about them. The main character reflects on the fact that if she gets closer to the children with her status as a commoner, their reputation will definitely suffer. And besides, she's wanted in the Duchy of Holland, although that's not relevant to Wace's empire. However, this is obviously something that will become a topic of conversation later. Evgenia understands that she has never regretted becoming the children's guardian, and she has never held a grudge. Moreover, she is an adult, unlike Joshua and Selmia. The lady thinks that she can fully take care of herself, and she will definitely cope with it, because the main character has something that she really wants to learn. The girl recalls that Enric had previously advised her to become a pharmacist, and it would be nice to open a herbal shop later. It would be wonderful when she could talk to the children again and be honest with them. Even though the boys are still little, they are good friends, and the main character is confident that they will understand that she needs to leave. Meanwhile, Elveri asks His Excellency if it's true that he won't give him a vacation. He claims that the master entrusts him with such difficult work, and he doesn't know why. He doesn't give him at least one day off. Enric looks out the window and wonders why he doesn't see her there, since he clearly heard that the lady works in the laundry. The guy with green hair claims that there is no business because the gentleman hangs out by the window all day. He asks the captain if he can hear him and even cries out to His Excellency. The head maid knocks on the door and the master orders her in. The woman asks the master to sign, and he reads it and asks who is leaving. Leia reports that she delivered it to the lady first, but she asked to get his signature. The maid explains that the mistress said that since it was the miss who brought the heir to the Keratin family, the master should deal with this. Enric asks in surprise, "Did she submit it herself?" Leia claims she submitted her resignation letter personally. The master says he'll put it aside for now. The maid is surprised to hear this, but the master asks her if she heard. He claims he'll handle it himself and suggests the servants leave. Elveri says that he also has things to do, and so he also leaves, and the maid also leaves. Sitting alone in his office, Enric can't understand why Evgenia suddenly wrote a resignation letter. He clutches the paper, not understanding whose decision it was. The gentleman is concerned about why the young woman decided to leave, especially considering she brought twins with her. Perhaps she simply wants to request a transfer to another position, since she submitted her resignation. The guy thought that it really shouldn't matter to him whether she left or stayed. However, he doesn't want the lady to leave him and doesn't understand why it bothers him so much. Enric complained of a headache and remembered she'd given him something when he mentioned insomnia. He looked at the bottle of oil and realized he should use it. The gentleman reflected on how no one had ever shown concern for him before. His well-being had always been ignored by the Duke and Duchess, his younger brother, and even the country as a whole. Eventually, his suffering from loneliness subsided, and Enric learned to live without expectations. He became curious, and even a little amused by what the girl thought of him, despite the fact that they had only known each other for so long. In this curious situation, he wondered what he wanted from her. The gentleman decided to take the statement with him and put it off until later, believing that the situation would become clearer later. Enric was thinking that he didn't want to miss the chance this time and let the young lady slip away from him. Meanwhile, Evgenia was thinking about her long-awaited vacation. She planned to give the children snacks and mint leaves, and she also realized she needed to buy something else. However, the main character heard someone asking her where she was going. The girl looked around but didn't see anyone, and Mr. Xian said that he was upstairs. Evgenia asked him what he was doing there and suggested they go down, as it could be dangerous. He asked if she was worried about him. He added that he had been wanting to see her and considered it lucky to meet her now. The young lady was then beyond surprised, and she also asks if he really wanted to meet her, to which the guy replies that yes, they hadn't seen each other for a long time. He also kisses a lock of the girl's hair and asks how she's doing. However, the main character only pulls away, and she thinks that such a beautiful face is bad for her heart, after which she claims that everything is fine with her. And they also hadn't seen Mr. Cheyenne for a long time, and it was difficult to meet him because he had probably been very busy lately. The guy replies that he's not that busy and that it's just his job to open up. Evgenia asks what he's talking about. He also wonders if he actually made a mistake while working and is now hiding from Cedric, but the guy says that of course not. He then asks where Miss Evgenia is headed. The girl replies that today is her day off, so she was planning to go to the market. The young man then asks if he can go with her, and the girl replies that he is going to buy medicinal herbs. It's a boring task, and besides, shouldn't he be hiding? He's a guy, that's true. However, if he's gone for a short time, nothing bad will happen, and besides, he can hide while he's around her. The young man also claims that he does not want to make the same mistake that happened last time, and perhaps from the young lady he will be able to learn more about medicinal herbs. The main character then turns to Mr. Xian with a little concern, and wonders if he still remembers what happened back then. The girl then agrees and says that they will go together, and she will also tell him about medicinal herbs, but first he should change his clothes so that he is not discovered. The young man then thanks Miss Eugenia and asserts that he will study hard, after which he goes to the estate and says he'll go change, and the girl agrees. And so, together with Mr. Xian, she went to the market. The girl told him about medicinal herbs and their varieties, effectiveness, methods of use, and so on. They also picked out plenty of snacks for the kids. And then it was time to head home. When they came back, the guy claimed that today was a lot of fun, and thanks to the young lady, he spent his time usefully. Afterwards, they said goodbye, and the guy insisted he thought Cedric would come looking for him. The main character told him to be careful so no one would discover he'd been shirking his job. The young man winks at the girl and says of course, and then invites her to go on a date. The main character replies that yes, but when the guy comes out, she is a little silent, after which he wonders if they really just went on a date, but then the girl thinks that's not true. And Mr. Xian is just a big joker, so she needs to quickly bring Enric some peppermint oil. After which, the girl goes into the stable and looks for the black horse. Then she finds it. And it suits both the animal and is also welcomed and claims that this horse looks just like its owner. The girl comes to her and says that she will disturb the horse for a second, and also thinks whether it is worth hiding the butter in this haystack. The young lady then puts down the basket and says it's excellent. She also wanted to give it away after it's been aged for a month, but there's nothing she can do about it. There's no time for that. Then the main character gets up and realizes that it's time for her to go, but at that very moment she bumps into someone. Then the girl screams and asks who it is, and also realizes that she has seen this cape somewhere before, and Lord Xian was wearing it. But then the young lady suddenly trips over the hay and collapses on him, after which she rises and spits hay out of her mouth. She also screams that the guy scared her and asks why he is still wearing a cape. And is he still hiding? However, the bank asks what she is talking about. The young lady is then a little surprised because she believes Enrique is in front of her, after which she bows to him. She also screams, asking for forgiveness, and claims that she was scared and did not recognize him, that is, did not notice him. The guy asks if she says that if she knew it was him, she wouldn't have done it. The girl replies that of course not, and how could she do such a thing? She also realizes she was mistaken because the cape is a similar color. Then the young man says, if it were someone else in his place, I'd be wrong. However, he suddenly stops, after which he says that nothing, and in any case, she shouldn't do for others what she can't do for him. The main character then apologizes, and the young man asks if she has free time tomorrow, because if she is not busy, he suggests meeting her at a cafe on the square at 11 o'clock. Evgenia wonders why he is offering to meet and claims that she thinks she will be at work then, and the young man says that he will then tell her to pass on the order through the head maid, so let her use this as an excuse. Evgenia says that it's good, after which she turns to the guy and says that since he's there, let him take this too. The man asks what it is, and the young lady replies that it is the peppermint oil he asked for. Enric claims that there is so much of it, and wonders why the girl made so much of it. The main character replies that she can't see him often, so she cooked a lot at once. The young man remains silent after this and looks at the young lady, after which he turns around. He also says that they will meet tomorrow, to which the young lady agrees, and when he leaves, he repeats the words that they will meet tomorrow, but the next day when she approaches the city, she understands that she couldn't close her eyes for a minute. But what does he want to tell her that he specifically invites her to a meeting outside the mansion? Perhaps she was also put on the wanted list in the duchy, or perhaps it was because of her children. But if that's not the case, then he probably summoned her because she dared to threaten to strike her superior. Then the young lady walks into one of the restaurants and is immediately greeted by a worker. She asks if the girl came alone, but if so, she will show her to the table. The main character replies that her companion will come soon, after which a man appears behind her and says that there are two of them. The young lady then turns around and the guy just hands over a gold coin and tells her to show them a quiet place. The worker agrees and says that she will see them out now, and Evgenia realizes that she barely recognized Enric, because he doesn't wear a suit in everyday life, but this outfit suits him. At this point, the young man turns to Evgenia and says they should go. The young lady follows him. A little while later, they're already sitting at the table with cups of tea. The young lady asks why he called her, but the guy doesn't answer that she submitted a resignation letter, after which he hands over a piece of paper, and he says that it's hers. He tells the main character that yes, and she gave it to the head maid. While she asks why it's so wrinkled, the guy doesn't even know what to say after that. The young lady insists that she wrote it anyway because she plans to quit soon. Enric asks why, as there's no better job to be found there. The girl replies that, of course, the Grazia family home is a wonderful place, but she safely delivered both children there and wants to start a new life. The man asks if she is talking about a new life and wonders if the twins were just a passing moment for her. But he can't believe the girl is leaving them and going off in search of a new life. The main character asks him what he's talking about and insists she never considered children a burden. And since he saw everything from the outside, he should understand this perfectly well. But he says these words without knowing the reason, and the girl asks what he wants to tell her. Enric only claims that she turned his life upside down and now claims that she is leaving him. The main character then asks in shock what he said and what she did. Evgenia also claims that everyone is watching and asks him to quickly tell her that he was wrong. However, the guy says that no matter how sad it was, he told it like it is, and it is true that she completely turned his life upside down. Other aristocrats are already starting to whisper and ask if that girl really played with him, and it looks like they even have children. The main character then realizes in shock that she is not like that, and what the hell are they talking about? At the same time, Elveri is wondering where Enric has disappeared to, since he now has a ton of work. The main character asks why the man is treating her this way. The young man simply claims he doesn't know why she wants to leave, and since the girl says that she wants to start a new life, he asks if this place can't be included in it. The young lady replies that that is not the issue, and that she simply did not want to be pushed into making a decision. And she should have just left then, so she doesn't want to regret the path she couldn't choose. And now the young lady claims that she hopes he will give her time to think. The guy then says that's it, and asks for forgiveness because he didn't take this into account, but the girl replies that everything is fine. Well, since he was kind to her, she accepts his offer, after which the young lady thanks him, and he claims he'll think again about staying there. The young man is silent for a while after that. He also claims it's a good idea and that he'll ask her about something else. He also asks if she made this decision because of the children. The main character is silent for a while after this, and the guy replies that it's clear, but this won't solve anything. And she and her mother agreed to give her the position of a maid, but this does not mean that she will be an ordinary servant for the children. The girl will be with them and can go on vacation at any time, so there won't be any obstacles. And let them laugh together, be happy, and not be shy about being greedy. The children want this too, and he would like this too. The main character is a little surprised by this. The guy asks if Evgenia knew about this. The girl then says yes, and she'll take it into account. And the man says that it's fine and let her think about it, but Evgenia wonders if this is why he called her. And isn't he very busy? However, the guy replies that he is not that busy. And the main character says that he is deceiving her because she herself heard that his relatives want to meet with him every day. He replies that he doesn't deny it, and they're willing to give their lives to bother him, and if he gives them one thing, they'll just give him other troubles again. So chatting with a young lady is a much better way to spend time. Evgenia then thanks the young man for thinking so highly of her and says she'll give him something else. She then hands over a black card and claims that lending it to him has given her peace of mind. The guy replies that he's glad she helped the young lady. The guy then realizes that this is not really something that can be given to just anyone. It is granted only to the Shatan, that is, the shadow detachment directly subordinate to the emperor, and gives privileges. Even if its owner commits a crime while carrying out a mission, he will not be held accountable. Thanks to this, he can pass even through the border checkpoint without any problems. And the guy reported it to this young lady because he thought that it would be useful to her, and if she used it, he would immediately be able to find out her location. But since she is now next to him, there is no longer any need for this, and the young man asks what is going on with their stone tower. The girl replies that she has become a memory, and the guy is a little surprised. The young lady claims they built a tower of stones and made a wish. Now they've met again and the wish has come true, so she can look back on it as a fond memory. The guy then thinks about good memories and realizes that it's not so bad as he thought. A little while later, the young lady is already wondering how it all came to this. She is in the middle of the market and understands that she just wanted to replace Eileen, help the children, and go directly to the group. Everyone was so hooked on her because she is not even some kind of important person. The young lady also understands that she can still understand the children, and after so many difficulties, they want to stay with her. Hey, to be honest, she was glad when Joshua and Selmia asked her not to leave them. But the girl still doesn't understand how she caught the Duke's attention, since she didn't do anything like that. But then something occurs to her, and the young lady becomes a little embarrassed. But then she waves her hands, and she cries out that there is no need to jump to conclusions, because after a long time she finally has a chance to be alone, so she will rest until she returns. A little while later, the young lady bursts into a bar and asks to be served a beer. The young lady also understands that first she will get drunk and understands that there are probably already a lot of people because it is already evening. One of them screams that she put an insane amount of salt in their food and is so happy. The main character then realizes that this is a worker in the house of Gerace, and the girl at this time claims that he is a young gentleman. He buttered up because his family was ruined, and she was so irritated by his arrogant behavior. Her friend at this time claims that the girl has enough courage and asks what she will do if she is heard. The maid replies that everything is fine, because no one is paying attention to her, and it's probably because she's young, and her interlocutor smiles and tells her to just take a look. But was he really pushed out that hard? The maid replies that it is more interesting than she thought, and the two never leave the guest room. That's why she wonders where they came from, but when the girl wants to say something else. Then the main character immediately angrily puts her beer on the table, and the maid says that the girl scared her too. After which she gets up and asks what it is, but the main character already claims that she heard their conversation perfectly well, and she remembered their faces, so they would see each other again. The maid was a little surprised after this, and he also screams, "Does she really know who they are?" After which he tells the girl to stop and also asks what this all means. At this time, the main character leaves the cafe and immediately heads towards the estate. A little while later, she is already knocking on the children's room, and they tell the person behind the door to come in. The main character then comes in, and Samiya tells her sister to hurry up and asks if something happened. The girl claims she was just curious about how they were doing, but she wonders why they aren't eating. The guy then says they have no appetite and asks his sister if that's true. The girl replies that yes, and today she has no appetite at all. The main character then asks if this is true. The little girl says yes, and she doesn't feel like eating any meat today. The main character is a little surprised after this, and then it all comes down to food. The young man then asks Evgenia what she's doing, but when he sees that the girl is about to eat it, he screams at her to wait because it's not edible. The main character then closes her mouth and wonders if they really gave this to children. The young lady also wonders if that is why they haven't eaten, and wonders if this is the first time something like this has happened. The guy then says yes, of course, and he thinks the food was seasoned improperly today. His sister only agrees, and the main character looks at them in shock and thinks that it was too irresponsible, and she wonders if the rumor will spread that the children are attached to her, and that while everyone was sleeping, it came into their room to make sure they were not sleeping. And I couldn't even imagine that after the end of the contract, I would not only greet the children, but also personally take care of them. Well, the girl holding the paper in her hands understands that everything is not right, and is worried that she will somehow harm the children. She thought it was the right decision to live with bated breath, but she still wouldn't do it. Now the young lady claims that it looks like the chef made a mistake and the food tastes strange. The boys should have told her about it. However, the young man asks why, and he claims he thinks he'll cook next time. The main character says he might make a mistake again, and she'll be in the kitchen now, so they shouldn't worry and wait a little. However, the little girl says she really doesn't want to eat, and she's not hungry at all, so there's no need to worry. The young man says she doesn't need to interfere. They'll sort everything out themselves, so the girl shouldn't worry. After that, I'll be staying with these two. And he asks how she can not worry, and also that she has something important that they don't know about. After all, people live thanks to food. The kids are a little surprised and ask what it's all about, and the girl wonders if they know how important food is for growing children. And they must eat a lot, because only then will they grow healthy and big. Therefore, they do not need to worry about anything and eat well in order to grow well, because this is the most important thing. The girl also claims that it will be better if the adults there trust her, and she will help them as much as she can, and the guys trust her. The young man then turns to Evgenia and asks how she can ask such a thing. Of course, she's the only one they trust. The little girl also claims that she always trusted her too, and Evgenia did not leave them despite all the difficulties, which is why they will believe her until the end. The main character then hugs the children and thanks them for their trust, and also states that she will return soon. After this, the young lady leaves the room and thinks how dare they treat her like that, even now, to her children. Well, then the young lady understands that she needs to calm down, and she has no influence, which is why she cannot solve this problem on her own, and if she reports what happened, then there must be a limit to what even a noble lady can do. She may only be able to give a warning due to the fact that the development meeting is taking place. It hasn't ended yet, and then the likelihood of it stopping will increase, which will be bad. But in this case, the main character now understands that there is only one way out. A short time later, a young man with green hair appears from around the corner. He also addresses Miss Eugenia, claiming he's been busy all this time and hasn't been able to meet her, which is why. He's so happy they ran into each other by chance. The young man also claims there's a meeting going on and asks what she's doing there, but the girl only says she hasn't seen Mr. Elvery in a while, and it seems she arrived just in time. The young man is then a little surprised and asks what she is talking about, and the girl insists that it is the truth. A little while later, the guy already understands the whole situation and wonders if this really happened. He also turns to the door and says that he understands and let the girl wait there, and the young lady thanks Mr. Elvery for his help. At this time, a meeting is taking place in the office of the Duchy of Juracia. A young man with green hair addresses the master, and she asks for forgiveness for disturbing him, after which she whispers something in his ear about Evgeny. The brunette says that he understood, after which he suggests stopping there, because he is sure. What everyone there knows is that guests from the Keratin family and with them are staying in this house. Such a terrible tragedy happened, after which the young man tells the girl to come in. The main character does so and thanks for permission, after which she asks for forgiveness and states that her name is Evgenia. The girl says that she previously worked as a servant in the house of the Keratin family in the Duchy of Holland and came there because she had something to tell them. One of the men then asks if they didn't all die, and another aristocrat claims that it looks like it wasn't just the children who came. At this time, these two are asked to remain silent, and Enric tells the girl to tell what she saw. The girl claims she checked the young master and young mistress's food. The old man's was incredibly salty, and the potatoes were undercooked, and she came because she doesn't understand how the workers of the Duke's house, who take care of the children from the Keratin family, made such a mistake. The man then asks how this is connected with them, and how they can believe it. After all, you shouldn't barge into a meeting with such a trivial incident. The main character is silent for a moment after this. Well, and then he claims that the Keratin family is a respectable marquis family in the Duchy of Holland, and the two children of this family received an invitation from the noble duchess, Lady Jacqueline Juracia, and became guests in the Duke's house. One of the women then asks what the outcome is, and the main character understands that they are uncomfortable sitting and listening. What the maid says is why now she claims that they have such a problem, and the Duke compliments it and claims that, being the head of the family, he must take responsibility for the geranium's family, and family members should know about this, after which the man asks if he is right. One of the aristocrats claims that the gentleman's words have some merit, however. Well, the man asserts that, one way or another, this is a problem that needs to be resolved right here and now. The main character then holds out the flocks and claims that it was served to the young master and young lady, after which the Duke tries it, and the other aristocrats are a little surprised. The man then says that indeed he is absolutely inedible, therefore he is disgraced as the head of the family of the Herat, and it is obvious that control on their part has been weakened. Brunet also says that he officially apologizes to the children of the Keratin family, as the head of the family asks if anyone has any objections. The aristocrats then respond that they are, after which the Duke turns to Cedric and tells him to immediately help Miss Eugenia and find those involved. The man then agrees with the leader and asks how they should be dealt with. However, the Duke says that they will leave it to the victims, after which he turns to Eugenia, and he says that it would be better if she tells the twins about this, to which the girl agrees, after which she bows and thanks His Excellency for his help. The man says everything is fine and he understands, so she can go. The young lady says she is very grateful to him for taking the time. A short time later, the Duchess is screaming at them. How could they do this, and smashing dishes? She also claims that these children aren't even 10 years old yet. And are they really the people Juracia is proud of? And no matter what happens, she will not leave it like this. After which the woman knocks on the table and asks, who dared to do this? The main character then looks behind her and sees one of the maids, and also understands what she found. The Duchess at this time screams out that they should know that she will find everyone who was even slightly involved in this. She also turns to Evgenia and claims that she said she knew who the culprit was. Therefore, let the girl follow the order of the head of the family and find those who are responsible for what happened, after which the young lady agrees. And the main character looks at the maid who spoke about the children like that, then approaches her and says that they have met again. And the girl hasn't forgotten her face, so let her state her name and position. The maid then realizes she saw this girl yesterday in the pub, and she didn't know that she was the same worker in Girardi's house as she was. Now the maid claims it, that her name is N, and she is also responsible for delivering food from the main building and preparing rooms for guests. Well, she screams, where's the evidence that she did it? After all, she just delivered food as usual. The main character then asks if she wants proof, and claims that then she can punish all the workers who became witnesses, those responsible for the guest bedrooms in the outbuilding. The maid then asks what she's talking about, and the young lady wonders if it's not obvious, and in any case, since she is not to blame, then one of her colleagues must be to blame. Including the cook preparing the food, however, the man screams for them to wait because he was not playing any pranks with the food. The food was purchased from the residents, valuable taxes, and it's also being prepared with the pride and honor of the Girardi family. The protagonist says that in this case, the culprit also insulted his boss, the chef. Then she looks at the maid and asks if she's right. The other maids then start swaying among themselves, and they say that if a girl has committed a crime, then she should confess quickly, and why should they also suffer because of her? The girl also understands that if she knew that this case would reach such a scale, she would not have listened to the Baron. But what if she accused him? Then she will definitely be plunged into eternal sleep, and now the woman falls to her knees and screams to beg, because she is the only one to blame for this, and she asks to spare her. The main character asks why the girl did this. She replies that she simply thought that they did not belong there, and she began to live with other family members who were worried. However, the Duchess immediately cries out that she's tired of hearing this. She also asks if she said those two don't belong there. The woman also asks if she knows who she serves, and how she has the courage to worry about the children of her collateral relatives. The maid claims that she made a mistake and asks the mistress to forgive her, but the woman claims that now it is not her who should beg for forgiveness, but Joshua and Selmia. He also wonders if she really cares about the children from her side families, but she believes that there is no need to worry about these children, and that later they are the ones who determine her punishment. And she will also appoint him, because from that moment on, the maids were responsible for the guest bedrooms in the outbuilding. They'll work in the laundry. The girls then, shocked, ask why they're being punished too. But washing and ironing are the lowest of the low. However, the woman tells them to shut up. After all, they all had to keep a close eye on the children, but as Evgenia said, they only watched from the sidelines. And right now, she wants to fire everyone. But at the moment they are in an important period, so from this day on, people in two positions are attracted to us, and if everyone understands everything, then they can return to work. And the woman also claims that if the children want to fire them, then she will not be able to do anything, let them think carefully about everything while working in the lowest positions. A little while later, Selmia turns to her sister and hands her a cake. The main character says that the little girl gave her such a treat, and the girl replies that yes, and it is tasty, so she wanted to give it to her sister. And the main character insists that, as she thought, their Selmia is the best. The girl also asks Joshua if he should get him more tea, but he replies that he doesn't need it. After which he thanks Evgenia and says that it's all thanks to her, but the girl claims that she should apologize because she should have been more attentive. And she asks what the young man wants to say about this. And the guy claims that they will follow the grandmother's decision, and as long as Evgenia is there, he doesn't need anything else. The girl agrees with her brother and says she's not worried as long as her sister works there. And besides, she became their personal servant, and the little girl says that she is so happy that she can see her sister more often, and the main character says that's what it is. The girl understands that she should have done this a long time ago, and then they would have had delicious food from the start and warm hospitality. But she was so stupid, and the presence of these looks from the people of the Duke's family, she could not think clearly at that time, and was only busy with leaving. The girl also understands that now she will stay with them and take care of them. Now the young lady claims that she is also very happy to be with them, and since they are all together, let the boys try it after all, the chef decided to demonstrate his skills for them. The boy then asks if Evgenia could stop giving him food without his stomach exploding. The little girl says she won't, and her brother asks how so much fits inside a girl. At this point, one of the roomers notices a noise coming from the residence. One of the aristocrats asks if the baby is to blame. After all, this is the first time a development meeting has been so lively. Another man says that's true, but then someone comes into the room and claims that it looks like he's very late. It turns out to be the Duke, and he claims that, judging by all the noise, this is true. One of the men immediately rises from the table, and he says he's glad to meet the leader. The Duke just sits down at the table and tells them to all sit down. He also suggests that today we talk not about them, but about the children staying at Gerace's residence. The man asks if the gentleman wants to talk about the children, and he replies that yes, and a few days ago the problem of food regarding those children was discussed, and one of the aristocrats asks if the breaking was resolved, and the man replies that it was resolved, but that is not what we are talking about, and he needs to tell them one thing. After all, he intends to recognize Joshua and Selmia and the families of the Marquis of Keraton, the Duchy of Halland, relatives on the collateral side of the Duke of Gerace's family. All the aristocrats are immediately shocked, and they scream out what the head is talking about and also ask him to think again. But the brunette then claims that he doesn't know why they are against it, but it is a request from a noble lady. One of the women claims that even if it were a request from a noble lady, they would be against it. But the Duke asks why they are so critical. The man then claims that when they are recognized as relatives, then won't they be able to take part in the meeting and development? And the Duke understands that he knew that this would happen and that the Marquis of Keraton is truly of that family, on the brink of extinction, and therefore if Joshua and Selmia prove themselves at the development meeting. The relatives won't be happy about this because their children will have more competition, and what's more, these children come from Jacqueline's parental home, and therefore they are guaranteed the protection and support of a noble lady. That's why the others desperately oppose it. Now the Duke claims that these children were deprived of their parents, and shouldn't their family, as their relatives, take them into custody? However, one of the men approaches His Excellency and asks for at least confirmation that the children of the Keraton family will not participate in the development meeting. However, the man insists that this depends on their doctor. Another aristocrat approaches His Excellency and claims that they have no right to participate. He also cries out that there is not a drop of red liquid flowing in these children from the hideout of Duke Gerace. The Duke is a little surprised after this, and then becomes completely furious. The aristocrat then understands what he said and tries to say that this is not what he wanted to say. The prosecution only claims that they are blood relatives of the noble lady Jacqueline Hannah Gerace, who was devoted to the Gerace family for many years. And he wonders if the man is questioning that fact and denying it. The aristocrat is a little frightened by this, but still tries to object, but the Duke says that no excuses are needed. And they also know very well how much a noble lady devotes herself to her family. However, Baron Mullen denies the blood relationship between Joshua and Selmia Creighton and also claims that they have no rights in the family, and despite the fact that he had previously indicated that they were relatives on his mother's side, after which he asks if everything is correct, and one of the aristocrats says that of course they know very well how much a noble lady protects the territory and family, and the Duke then says that knowing about this, how dare they defame a noble lady? And discussing her rights is truly disappointing. The man then asks His Excellency for forgiveness and claims he spoke rashly. The Duke then tells the young man to watch his words from now on and to ensure such conversations don't reach the noble lady. The young man then says he'll keep that in mind. And Ennard claims that today he called them not to ask their opinion, but to inform them of the decision he had made. He also claims that since he has already made a decision with the power of the head family regarding the recognition of the Keraton family as a side branch of the Gerace family, he will not take into account the opinions of others. And of course, those who disagree can leave at any moment. However, the aristocrat doesn't stop there and asks the leader if he has something to say. After which the man claims that, strictly speaking, isn't he from the same collateral family as they are? After all, the blood of their noble ancestors flows within him, and that's why the children are taking part in this development meeting. However, the Duke interrupts him, and states that he sees no point in continuing to listen to this and puts an end to it. After which the man leaves, and one of the aristocrats turns to the leader and tells him to just listen. But the brunette claims that he expects the Baron to deliver a quality performance at the next meeting. After which he leaves, slamming the door, and one of the aristocrats at the same moment turns to the other, and she asks what he plans to do about it, and how he could have said such a thing. But the man says that since he knows everything so well, he should do something himself, and why is he keeping his mouth shut and simply watching what the boss does? The man then asks what he's talking about, how dare he, and whether he even knows who he is. The woman stops her husband and says that the most important topic for them right now is their children, and the aristocrat asks what then, and what they will do. After all, since the leader made the decision, it was determined what they must do. And they still have a chance, and they will simply pull out this sprout before it grows. After all, they will never let him grow up, and the man asks if this is true. A short time later, the protagonist is near the Duchess. The woman claims that extinguishing the fire is also effective, and she claims that she is talking about the plants that she gave her last time, and Evgenia says that she is glad that the lady liked them, and it is good that the doctor taught her when she came to the village pharmacy earlier. The woman then asks about that doctor, and the young lady claims that he said that he learned about it a long time ago from a merchant and from another country. The girl also understands that although she didn't know that wormwood existed in this world, well, so that it was called Vimud, it was good that the girl had prepared it in advance. At this time, the woman thanks the girl and claims that because of this unbearable pain, she had a hard time, but thanks to her, she felt much better. The main character says that the lady is overpraising her, and that she only used folk medicine, but the woman says that the young lady is excellent. And even the Duke's family's attending physician, who is considered talented, couldn't. However, the girl helped her to reduce her pain to such an extent that she felt very relieved. The main character then thanks the lady, but at that very moment someone enters the room and tells the lady that it is Leia. The girl also apologizes for such rudeness, but claims that the lady received an urgent letter. The woman then asks who it is from, after which she reads it and says that it is clear. And first you need to send her condolences so the girl can go, to which the maid agrees. The lady then sits down and asks what she should do about this, and the main character wonders if something really happened. The Duchess claims that the governess who assisted at the development meeting last year and decided to help with this one said that it would be difficult for her to attend due to her husband's immersion in eternal sleep. The young lady understands that if she thinks about it, she heard that the boys were recognized as relatives on the collateral line, and it turns out that they will also have to fulfill this duty. She then turns to the lady and asks what exactly is happening at the development meeting. The woman replies that she's currently interested in this topic, and he claims that the development meeting is a kind of place for demonstrating learning, or a long-term selection of an heir, during which time all the children from the collateral families gather. They also receive the same high-quality education from the Duke's family. They are observed for several years to determine which of them is most likely to become the head of the family, and which are worthy of being selected for further training. The main character then says that a governess is the person who takes care of children and their lives in general, and the woman replies that this is true. And the governess is a teacher who provides education, and individually, she reconciles children in case of unrest, and also assigns appropriate rewards and punishments, and also promotes the development of friendly competition. So a noble lady who taught etiquette is brought in for this role. The main character says, "This is how it is," and the woman insists that it's Mrs. Halen. She's always done an excellent job as a governess, and there's no one else to fill the position. However, the main character tells her mistress not to worry. After all, Duke Gerase's family is reputable, and so they'll certainly find a suitable candidate soon. The girl then claims to have brought the mistress's favorite teas. At this time, the Duchess thinks what a pity it is, and if only the girl's social status were a little higher. She would have succeeded in a lot, and now the woman thanks Evgenia and also thinks that it would be wonderful if that were the case. A little while later, the young lady already screams that she is late for her mistress. And the wife asks where the street is coming from. There is such a downpour. But she didn't even hear the sound of the bell, and all the maids left, leaving her alone. After this, the main character suddenly bumps into someone and apologizes. However, when she looks at this person, the one who is completely covered with branches then screams and claims that it is a ghost. And he also says that this evil spirit should disappear, after which they throw something at him. However, when he screams in pain. Then the young lady wonders if this is a man, but when she sees a hammer in his hands, which you read liquid, and his clothes, then she gets completely scared and starts running away. The girl realizes that the rain muffles sounds and she can't see the road ahead. But this is the perfect weather for burying a dead body, and that's why she didn't want to come today. The young lady also wonders who organized this, and whether it was her family relatives or those who put her on the wanted list. But first, she needs to get to a place where there are people. However, at that very moment, someone grabs the young lady and the main character breaks free and screams for the person to let her go. The girl also screams if there is anyone there and asks for help, but at the same moment, a young woman trips on a slippery staircase and begins to fall. The young man then tries to catch her. However, when the girl almost touches the floor, she thinks why she doesn't feel pain, because she definitely fell down the stairs. After which the young lady opens her eyes. But then she is very surprised because she sees this in front of her, Mr. Shion. The young man at this time asks Miss Eugenia if she is hurt, and the main character thanks him for catching her, after which the guy says that it's nothing, and what's more important is that she really scared him. After all, the young lady suddenly showered him with herbs and screamed. He also wondered if the girl mistook him for a ghost. Evgenia replied that she hadn't, and wondered why the gentleman looked like that. And his clothes are already dirty. The guy then asks if the girl talks about it, and then confirms it. He heard that the roof was leaking and came to help, but slipped and fell into a berry field. Then Cedric noticed him, and he ran away from his grumbling, and that's how it all happened. The main character then claims that he should have told her about this, and if she had heard at least his voice, she would have understood that it was him. The young man then apologizes and claims that he has caught a sore throat and therefore cannot speak loudly. The main character asks how he got sick, and the guy claims that he couldn't adapt to the cold in the Duke's house, and the chores here and there also played a role. The main character then says that he should take care of his health and tells her to go. Well, then she feels pain in her ankle and yelps a little. The young man then asks if the lady has a sprain. He also tells her to sit down and let him take a look. The girl says no, and she'll be fine in no time. However, the young man tells her to sit down anyway, and he will check the condition of her leg. The guy then extends his hand to help her, and the nth lady finally agrees. After which she sits down on the stairs, and the young man says that apparently the muscles are a little stretched and still, just in case, it is worth going to the doctor. The main character then thanks him for his concern, and understands that perhaps because she is barefoot, her foot is a little itchy. But at that very moment, someone asks what they are doing there, and when the main character turns around. Then Enrica sees the blonde when she claims Miss Eugenia injured her ankle, and he checked her condition. The Duke then asks how it happened, and the young lady replies that there is nothing special, and she is no longer in pain. The girl also gets to her feet and tells him to look, because she is full of energy. Well, at that very moment, her leg starts to hurt again, and the girl almost falls again. The Duke extends his hand and wants to hold the young lady so that she does not fall. However, at that very moment, the blonde grabs her and asks if the girl is okay, because she could still be sick, so she should be careful. The heroine then smiles and apologizes to Mr. Shion. The Duke then turns to Eugenia, and he claims that he will call the doctor and it will be better if she takes a break from work today, but the girl claims that everything is not that bad and also wonders why the guy suddenly took her hand. The brunette asks if she is okay, because he is worried about whether she can walk normally, and Shion says that then, if she watches, everything is fine, otherwise he will take her. The main character then thinks what happened to these two, and if someone sees them, they will think that she is so badly injured that her treatment will take 4 whole weeks. Then the main character says that after finishing work, she will calmly go on her own, and the blonde man says that he will not mind if she leans on him. Eugenia also turns to the Duke and asks what business he came there for, since this staircase is intended for workers. The guy replies that he was looking for Shion and told him to go with him, and the young man says that's fine. After which he follows the gentleman and tells Evgenia that he will go, and the girl should be sure to bandage her ankle securely afterwards. He also hands her some sweets and says they're delicious, so she asks him to accept them as an apology. The main character then asks if they're really candy and thanks him. And the young man kisses her hand and says that he is saying goodbye to her and will wait for the next meeting. The young lady is a little embarrassed by this. And then he hears the Duke address Xian coldly and also claims that he told him to follow him. The young man then agrees with a smile on his face and says that he is going, after which he follows the master. The main character then thinks how Mr. Xian can behave so impudently towards Enric. And she also wonders if he is really too confident in himself or brave, because she doesn't understand. A little while later, the doctor packs his suitcase back and claims that he has completed the treatment. He also tells the girl to try not to run or lift heavy objects for a few days, after which he says goodbye. The protagonist says yes and thanks him for his work. She also understands that she never thought that she would be treated by the doctor of the Juretia family, and she is very embarrassed that this treatment is taking place in the room with the main lady. At this time, the Duchess turns to the girl and says that she is glad that there are no major health problems. But she was very scared when she saw the girl limping. The woman also asks if she knows who she serves, and how she has the courage to worry about the children of her collateral relatives. The maid claims that she made a mistake and asks the mistress to forgive her, but the woman claims that now it is not her who should beg for forgiveness, but Joshua and Selmia. He also wonders if she really cares about the children from her side families, but she believes that there is no need to worry about these children, and that later they are the ones who determine her punishment. And she will also appoint him, because from that moment on the maids were responsible for the guest bedrooms in the outbuilding. They'll work in the laundry. The girls then, shocked, ask why they're being punished too. But washing and ironing are the lowest of the low. However, the woman tells them to shut up. After all, they all had to keep a close eye on the children, but as Evgenia said, they only watched from the sidelines. And right now she wants to fire everyone, but at the moment they are in an important period, so from this day on, people in 2 positions are attracted to us, and if everyone understands everything, then they can return to work. And the woman also claims that if the children want to fire them, then she will not be able to do anything. Let them think carefully about everything while working in the lowest positions. A little while later, Selmia turns to her sister and hands her a cake. The main character says that the little girl gave her such a treat, and the girl replies that yes, and it is tasty, so she wanted to give it to her sister. And the main character insists that, as she thought, their Selmia is the best. The girl also asks Joshua if he should get him more tea, but he replies that he doesn't need it. After which, he thanks Evgenia and says that it's all thanks to her, but the girl claims that she should apologize because she should have been more attentive, and she asks what the young man wants to say about this, and the guy claims that they will follow the grandmother's decision, and as long as Evgenia is there, he doesn't need anything else. The girl agrees with her brother and says she's not worried as long as her sister works there. And besides, she became their personal servant, and the little girl says that she is so happy that she can see her sister more often, and the main character says that's what it is. The girl understands that she should have done this a long time ago, and then they would have had delicious food from the start, and warm hospitality. But she was so stupid, and the presence of these looks from the people of the Duke's family, she could not think clearly at that time, and was only busy with leaving. The girl also understands that now she will stay with them and take care of them. Now the young lady claims that she is also very happy to be with them, and since they are all together, let the boys try it. After all, the chef decided to demonstrate his skills for them. The boy then asks if Evgenia could stop giving him food without his stomach exploding. The little girl says she won't, and her brother asks how so much fits inside a girl. At this point, one of the roomers notices a noise coming from the residence. One of the aristocrats asks if the baby is to blame. After all, this is the first time a development meeting has been so lively. Another man says that's true, but then someone comes into the room and claims that it looks like he's very late. It turns out to be the Duke, and he claims that, judging by all the noise, this is true. One of the men immediately rises from the table, and he says he's glad to meet the leader. The Duke just sits down at the table and tells them to all sit down. He also suggests that today we talk not about them, but about the children staying at Gerase's residence. The man asks if the gentleman wants to talk about the children, and he replies that yes, and a few days ago the problem of food regarding those children was discussed, and one of the aristocrats asks if the breaking was resolved, and the man replies that it was resolved, but that is not what we are talking about, and he needs to tell them one thing. After all, he intends to recognize Joshua and Selmia and the families of the Marquis of Keraton, the Duchy of Holland, relatives on the collateral side of the Duke of Gerace's family. All the aristocrats are immediately shocked, and they scream out what the head is talking about and also ask him to think again. But the brunette then claims that he doesn't know why they are against it, but it is a request from a noble lady. One of the women claims that even if it were a request from a noble lady, they would be against it, but the Duke asks why they are so critical. The man then claims that when they are recognized as relatives, then won't they be able to take part in the meeting and development, and the Duke understands that he knew that this would happen, and that the Marquis of Keraton is truly of that family, on the brink of extinction, and therefore if Joshua and Selmia prove themselves at the development meeting, the relatives won't be happy about this because their children will have more competition. And what's more, these children come from Jacqueline's parental home, and therefore they are guaranteed the protection and support of a noble lady. That's why the others desperately oppose it. Now the Duke claims that these children were deprived of their parents, and shouldn't their family, as their relatives, take them into custody? However, one of the men approaches His Excellency and asks for at least confirmation that the children of the Keraton family will not participate in the development meeting. However, the man insists that this depends on their doctor. Another aristocrat approaches His Excellency and claims that they have no right to participate. He also cries out that there is not a drop of red liquid flowing in these children from the hideout of Duke Gerace. The Duke is a little surprised after this, and then becomes completely furious. The aristocrat then understands what he said, and tries to say that this is not what he wanted to say. The prosecution only claims that they are blood relatives of the noble lady Jacqueline Hannah Gerace, who was devoted to the Gerace family for many years, and he wonders if the man is questioning that fact and denying it. The aristocrat is a little frightened by this, but still tries to object, but the Duke says that no excuses are needed, and they also know very well how much a noble lady devotes herself to her family. However, Baron Mullen denies the blood relationship between Joshua and Selmia Crichton and also claims that they have no rights in the family, and despite the fact that he had previously indicated that they were relatives on his mother's side, after which he asks if everything is correct, and one of the aristocrats says that of course they know very well how much a noble lady protects the territory and family. And the Duke then says that knowing about this, how dare they defame a noble lady, and discussing her rights is truly disappointing. The man then asks His Excellency for forgiveness and claims he spoke rashly. The Duke then tells the young man to watch his words from now on and to ensure such conversations don't reach the noble lady. The young man then says he'll keep that in mind, and Enric claims that today he called them not to ask their opinion, but to inform them of the decision he had made. He also claims that since he has already made a decision with the power of the head family regarding the recognition of the Keraton family as a side branch of the Gerace family, he will not take into account the opinions of others. And of course, those who disagree can leave at any moment. However, the aristocrat doesn't stop there and asks the leader if he has something to say. After which the man claims that, strictly speaking, isn't he from the same collateral family as they are? After all, the blood of their noble ancestors flows within him, and that's why the children are taking part in this development meeting. However, the Duke interrupts him and states that he sees no point in continuing to listen to this and puts an end to it. After which the man leaves, and one of the aristocrats turns to the leader and tells him to just listen. But the brunette claims that he expects the Baron to deliver a quality performance at the next meeting, after which he leaves, slamming the door, and one of the aristocrats at the same moment turns to the other, and she asks what he plans to do about it and how he could have said such a thing. But the man says that since he knows everything so well, he should do something himself, and why is he keeping his mouth shut and simply watching what the boss does? The man then asks what he's talking about, how dare he, and whether he even knows who he is. The woman stops her husband and says that the most important topic for them right now is their children. And the aristocrat asks what then, and what they will do. After all, since the leader made the decision, it was determined what they must do. And they still have a chance, and they will simply pull out this sprout before it grows. After all, they will never let him grow up, and the man asks if this is true. A short time later, the protagonist is near the Duchess. The woman claims that extinguishing the fire is also effective, and she claims that she is talking about the plants that she gave her last time, and Evgenia says that she is glad that the lady liked them, and it is good that the doctor taught her when she came to the village pharmacy earlier. The woman then asks about that doctor, and the young lady claims that he said that he learned about it a long time ago from a merchant and from another country. The girl also understands that although she didn't know that wormwood existed in this world, well, so that it was called Vimud, it was good that the girl had prepared it in advance. At this time, the woman thanks the girl and claims that because of this unbearable pain, she had a hard time, but thanks to her, she felt much better. The main character says that the lady is overpraising her and that she only used folk medicine, but the woman says that the young lady is excellent. And even the Duke's family's attending physician, who is considered talented, couldn't. However, the girl helped her to reduce her pain to such an extent that she felt very relieved. The main character then thanks the lady, but at that very moment someone enters the room and tells the lady that it is Leia. The girl also apologizes for such rudeness, but claims that the lady received an urgent letter. The woman then asks who it is from, after which she reads it and says that it is clear. And first you need to send her condolences so the girl can go, to which the maid agrees. The lady then sits down and asks what she should do about this, and the main character wonders if something really happened. The Duchess claims that the governess who assisted at the development meeting last year and decided to help with this one, said that it would be difficult for her to attend due to her husband's immersion in eternal sleep. The young lady understands that if she thinks about it, she heard that the boys were recognized as relatives on the collateral line, and it turns out that they will also have to fulfill this duty. She then turns to the lady and asks what exactly is happening at the development meeting. The woman replies that she's currently interested in this topic, and he claims that the development meeting is a kind of place for demonstrating learning, or a long-term selection of an heir, during which time all the children from the collateral families gather. They also receive the same high-quality education from the Duke's family. They are observed for several years to determine which of them is most likely to become the head of the family and which are worthy of being selected for further training. The main character then says that a governess is the person who takes care of children and their lives in general, and the woman replies that this is true. And the governess is a teacher who provides education, and individually, she reconciles children in case of unrest, and also assigns appropriate rewards and punishments, and also promotes the development of friendly competition. So a noble lady who taught etiquette is brought in for this role. The main character says this is how it is, and the woman insists that it's Mrs. Halen. She's always done an excellent job as a governess, and there's no one else to fill the position. However, the main character tells her mistress not to worry. After all, Duke Gerace's family is reputable, and so they'll certainly find a suitable candidate soon. The girl then claims to have brought the mistress's favorite teas. At this time, the Duchess thinks what a pity it is, and if only the girl's social status were a little higher, she would have succeeded in a lot, and now the woman thanks Evgenia and also thinks that it would be wonderful if that were the case. A little while later, the young lady already screams that she is late for her mistress. And the wife asks where the street is coming from. There is such a downpour. But she didn't even hear the sound of the bell, and all the maids left, leaving her alone. After this, the main character suddenly bumps into someone and apologizes. However, when she looks at this person, the one who is completely covered with branches then screams and claims that it is a ghost. And he also says that this evil spirit should disappear, after which they throw something at him. However, when he screams in pain. Then the young lady wonders if this is a man, but when she sees a hammer in his hands, which you read liquid, and his clothes, then she gets completely scared and starts running away. The girl realizes that the rain muffles sounds and she can't see the road ahead, but this is the perfect weather for burying a dead body, and that's why she didn't want to come today. The young lady also wonders who organized this, and whether it was her family relatives or those who put her on the wanted list. But first, she needs to get to a place where there are people. However, at that very moment, someone grabs the young lady and the main character breaks free and screams for the person to let her go. The girl also screams if there is anyone there and asks for help, but at the same moment, a young woman trips on a slippery staircase and begins to fall. The young man then tries to catch her. However, when the girl almost touches the floor, she thinks why she doesn't feel pain, because she definitely fell down the stairs. After which, the young lady opens her eyes, but then she is very surprised because she sees this in front of her. Mr. Xian. The young man at this time asks Miss Eugenia if she is hurt. And the main character thanks him for catching her, after which the guy says that it's nothing, and what's more important is that she really scared him. After all, the young lady suddenly showered him with herbs and screamed. He also wondered if the girl mistook him for a ghost. Evgenia replied that she hadn't, and wondered why the gentleman looked like that. And his clothes are already dirty. The guy then asks if the girl talks about it, and then confirms it. He heard that the roof was leaking and came to help, but slipped and fell into a berry field. Then Cedric noticed him, and he ran away from his grumbling, and that's how it all happened. The main character then claims that he should have told her about this, and if she had heard at least his voice, she would have understood that it was him. The young man then apologizes and claims that he has caught a sore throat and therefore cannot speak loudly. The main character asks how he got sick, and the guy claims that he couldn't adapt to the cold in the Duke's house, and the chores here and there also played a role. The main character then says that he should take care of his health and tells her to go. Well, then she feels pain in her ankle and yelps a little. The young man then asks if the lady has a sprain. He also tells her to sit down and let him take a look. The girl says no, and she'll be fine in no time. However, the young man tells her to sit down anyway, and he will check the condition of her leg. The guy then extends his hand to help her, and the nth lady finally agrees. After which, she sits down on the stairs and the young man says that apparently the muscles are a little stretched and still, just in case it is worth going to the doctor. The main character then thanks him for his concern, and understands that perhaps because she is barefoot, her foot is a little itchy. But at that very moment, someone asks what they are doing there, and when the main character turns around. Then Enrica sees the blonde when she claims Miss Eugenia injured her ankle, and he checked her condition. The Duke then asks how it happened, and the young lady replies that there is nothing special and she is no longer in pain. The girl also gets to her feet and tells him to look because she is full of energy. Well, at that very moment, her leg starts to hurt again, and the girl almost falls again. The Duke extends his hand and wants to hold the young lady so that she does not fall. However, at that very moment, the blonde grabs her and asks if the girl is okay, because she could still be sick, so she should be careful. The heroine then smiles and apologizes to Mr. Xian. The Duke then turns to Eugenia, and he claims that he will call the doctor and it will be better if she takes a break from work today, but the girl claims that everything is not that bad and also wonders why the guy suddenly took her hand. The brunette asks if she is okay, because he is worried about whether she can walk normally, and Xian says that then, if she watches, everything is fine, otherwise he will take her. The main character then thinks what happened to these two, and if someone sees them, they will think that she is so badly injured that her treatment will take 4 whole weeks. Then the main character says that after finishing work she will calmly go on her own, and the blonde man says that he will not mind if she leans on him. Eugenia also turns to the Duke and asks what business he came there for, since this staircase is intended for workers. The guy replies that he was looking for Xian and told him to go with him, and the young man says that's fine. After which he follows the gentleman and tells Evgenia that he will go, and the girl should be sure to bandage her ankle securely afterwards. He also hands her some sweets and says they're delicious, so she asks him to accept them as an apology. The main character then asks if they're really candy and thanks him. And the young man kisses her hand and says that he is saying goodbye to her and will wait for the next meeting. The young lady is a little embarrassed by this, and then he hears the Duke address Xian coldly and also claims that he told him to follow him. The young man then agrees with a smile on his face and says that he is going, after which he follows the master. The main character then thinks how Mr. Xian can behave so impudently towards Enric, and she also wonders if he is really too confident in himself or brave, because she doesn't understand. A little while later, the doctor packs his suitcase back and claims that he has completed the treatment. He also tells the girl to try not to run or lift heavy objects for a few days, after which he says goodbye. The protagonist says yes and thanks him for his work. She also understands that she never thought that she would be treated by the doctor of the Jurasha family, and she is very embarrassed that this treatment is taking place in the room with the main lady. At this time, the Duchess turns to the girl and says that she is glad that there are no major health problems. But she was very scared when she saw the girl limping.